It is 10 o'clock across the great state of Alabama. Welcome into Three-Man Front. Pat, Molly, Landrum, not here. Conrad, what'd you look at me that way for?
Landrum?
Yeah, he's not here. That's what I announced.
I was shocked that you said his name before Conrad.
Well, I mean, Landrum's more important than Conrad.
Oh.
Well, of course. Everyone's more important than Conrad. Let's be honest, Pat.
Well, based on what you just told me about your Friday plans, I mean, Molly, this might be the last time we get an opportunity to work with Conrad.
Wait, what are his Friday plans?
I can't disclose that unless he wants to announce it on the air, but...
you can tell me during a break.
Maybe I'll share it on Friday so people can enjoy my last show on Jog. I'm just kidding. I'll still be here.
Wow. Okay.
I'll still be here.
All right. A lot of basketball that we will get into today. We'll also have an update on what took place in Dallas, Texas with the college football playoff. But let's start with what we saw in Tuscaloosa, Alabama last night, because once again, Alabama left for dead after losing a couple games in SEC play. Then they got right against Kentucky, and they really got right last night against Mississippi State, 111-73. Bama hit 11 first-half three-pointers. That's a pretty good recipe. You had Sears and Youngblood hitting for 4 in the first half. They had a 26-point lead at halftime, and it didn't seem like it was that close.
No, outside of the first 5 minutes of the game, it essentially that was it in terms of if you're looking for a competitive ball game.
So the Tide, they make 22 three-pointers for the entire game. That is a season high. Youngblood goes for 27 points.
Can we play Mississippi State every game?
He loves Mississippi State. He scored 50 points in 2 games. He has shot 67% from behind the three-point arc against Mississippi State. All other games in the regular season, 33% behind the three-point arc. So it's just, I don't know if it's the uniforms. I don't know if it's Chris Jan's defense. Not really sure. But Youngblood loves him some Mississippi State. Mark Sears goes for 21 points. He hit 5 threes. And Diabate, you can't say enough about him. He had a double-double last night. And you look up, and all of a sudden he's got 10 points, 11 rebounds. They forced 14 turnovers. You could tell the defense, they were getting after it last night. And it made things very difficult for Hubbard and the rest of Mississippi State at the very beginning. So you saw a lot of people on social media nationally go, this Alabama team is why we're not saying that they're not a Final Four team. Because based on what you saw last night, Conrad, that had to make a lot of people around the country, not only the Southeastern Conference, go, this is the scary version of Alabama.
Yeah, and I mean, we were going back and forth talking to each other throughout the game last night. And I sent you at one point, it was, this version of Alabama could win a national championship. And I think that's absolutely true. Granted, are you going to shoot 22 of 45 from three-point range, every game the rest of the way out? I hope so, but probably not. But, that game last night was just so impressive. Like you said, I think, the 111 points, the most points that Alabama scored all season, that certainly will grab your attention. But I think, again, for Nate Oates, you walk away from that game looking at the defensive effort, particularly in the first half, because, he even acknowledged after the game, right? When you're up 30 late in a game, people are going to get lax a little bit. And you saw Mississippi State be able to add some points there at the end in a big way. But no, the defense in the first half, this looked like the version of Alabama that I was expecting to see at the start of the Kentucky game, right? Coming off of back-to-back losses, your hair's on fire, you're out there to make a statement and remind everybody of how good you actually are. And we had to wait an extra game for it, but you got that last night against a top 25 opponent. And when you have a guy like Chris Youngblood that can lead the way for you scoring, I know Mark Sears had another good night. I know Cliff, he didn't have a double-double again, but he had 8 and 8, which was very good to see. And it just felt like there was a sense of urgency for Alabama, right? They seem to take pride in their defense. And let's be honest, right? When you're hitting just about every shot you put up there, it makes it easier to play well on the defensive side of things. So it goes hand in hand, and hopefully this is a precursor of the Alabama that we're going to see over these next 3 games, because it's only going to get more difficult from here.
It certainly is. Let's hear from Nate Oates last night post-game as Alabama wins 111-73.
That was a little bit better start than what we'd had. I think it's the first time we've led it the first media timeout since Arkansas. So been stressing to have a little bit better sense of urgency to start the games. I thought LeBaron's sense of urgency to get stops on Hubbard was really good. That's what we need out of LeBaron every night. I thought he played great. He ended up with 10-5 with only 2 turnovers. But I thought, it's one of those deals where when you just get really locked into the right stuff and lose yourself in the game, the offense comes a lot easier. He shot 2 of 5 from 3, contributed to the 22 threes we made. So, I was happy with his defense, but there's other guys that took their turn on Hubbard that I thought did a pretty good job. I thought Sears had some moments on him. And he scored 21, but he got a lot of those late after we were up 30. I thought when the game was still undecided, particularly in the first half, he only had 6. And I liked our sense of urgency on defense. Barron's defensive leverage is a positive 19. It showed because he did a really good job on their best player. Thought, Youngblood was really locked into getting stops and trying to hold guys accountable, and he was positive 36 in his defensive leverage. Thought Cliffs had a sense of urgency these last 2 games that did a little bit better than what he's had, and he was plus 21 on the defensive leverage. So you kind of look at the guys that were positive on the defensive end and see, Grant was positive, Sears was positive on that defensive end, and that's what we're stressing. That's what we're really trying to get out of the guys. And the offense will take care of itself as long as we don't turn it over when we get on the old board.
That was Nate Oates last night after the impressive victory, season high in points. 8th time Alabama has scored more than 100 points on the season, 15th time above 90 points, which is the most in college basketball, and the 11th straight game above 80-plus points. So if you're going to play Alabama, you better bring your defense. There will be a lot of time that we will have to preview Tennessee-Alabama coming up this weekend, but that is going to be an interesting matchup because Tennessee, the best defense in the SEC, one of the best defenses in the country, how they're going to be able to try to tamper down this Alabama offense that seems to be on a roll.
Yeah, and like you said, we'll have time to get into that game, but, just looking ahead right now, I think if you're Alabama, you're sitting there and you're going, man, if we just get to 75, something like that, you're probably going to feel pretty good about your chances. And, this is a team that's scoring a little over 90 points a game. So that's going to be, a very, very interesting matchup. But, if Alabama's able to get 100 in one of these last 3 games, which is going to be tough because it's Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn, that would have been 6 of their SEC games, they will have scored over 100 points. So a third of their conference games, they will have gone into triple digits, which is just remarkable. And I thought, one thing that stood out to me in the game last night is obviously how great Chris Youngblood was, and they kind of highlighted it or talked about on the broadcast in a minute, but you had there was a play where, Aiden Holloway got the ball, and typically, you would expect him to put up that shot. It was a 3-point look. It was a good look. Like, nobody would have been mad at him if he had taken that shot, but he wasn't having his usual performance, and you saw him go and make the extra pass to Youngblood, which led to another 3. And it's just those kinds of plays where you go, okay, that's a selfless basketball play right there. That's a guy in Aiden Holloway who, coming off the bench has had a big role for Alabama, but maybe still has a little bit of it. Like, he wants to show what he can do when he's out there on the floor, and to recognize in that moment, hey, my teammate is absolutely on fire tonight. I might be able to take a good look here and, probably a 50% chance I'm going to make it, but let me go to the guy that has the hot hand and let's do that because that's a smart basketball play. And you just saw, I felt a lot of smart basketball plays from Alabama last night. And conversely for Mississippi State, credit to Alabama's defense again. There were multiple times where you had Mississippi State guys throwing the ball into the stands and there was nobody there, and they were just making life difficult for Mississippi State all night long. And again, to do that against a top 25 team is pretty remarkable.
The 10th quad 1 win of the season for Alabama. That's second best in the country, only behind Auburn. Tide's 9th win versus an AP top 25 opponent. That is adding to their already school record. They're now 23-5, 12-3 in the SEC. The big surprise last night in the Southeastern Conference came over in Athens, Georgia, where, man, you turn the game on and, you look away for a couple of minutes and that lead just continued to swell for Georgia. And then all of a sudden, you could just sense that Florida was going to be making that comeback, and they kept fighting. They kept clawing. And so all of a sudden, they were down by 26 points. And Florida, with 1 minute and 23 seconds left on the clock, they take the lead over Georgia. And at that point in time, how many times have we seen this, whether it's football, basketball, where momentum changes shirts, and then all of a sudden it goes the other direction? And you could tell even Kirby Smart, who was sitting courtside, he was getting worried.
Yep.
I mean, you could tell Kirby's like, oh, I've seen this story before. This is going to be a problem. But credit to Georgia, because when Florida took that lead, then if you remember, Georgia came down and hit the big three to regain the lead. And then at that point on, Georgia just did a great job. They hit their free throws when they had to, even though they had some dumb fouls towards the end of the game, trying to extend the game a little bit.
Oh, and some of the shots they had were not good.
No, not at all.
Not good.
The good news for Georgia, they get a signature win that they desperately needed. They win 88-83. Now, all of a sudden, according to Joe Lunardi and other bracketologists, Georgia is not in the tournament as of this moment. But the good news is they're now one of the first 4 teams out.
There we go.
That's right. So they get another win here or there based on how good the SEC is this year. Then you could find Georgia being the 14th SEC team in the NCAA tournament. So Florida, meanwhile, with them losing, they have been surpassed by Houston. So Houston has now gained one of the number 1 seeds, according to Joe Lunardi. Meanwhile, Florida is now a 2 seed.
Yeah, and, for Georgia now, you imagine, with what they have coming up, if you can get one more win, you would feel pretty good about their odds. Obviously, if you can get 2 out of the last 3, you're going to have even better chances. But, all you can ask right now for a team like Georgia is you're in the conversation, right? You control your own destiny in the sense that you go out here and you perform down the stretch, you have a good run in the SEC tournament, and you're going to find yourself playing in March. It was just interesting because I can't remember if it was on SVP or maybe it was SEC Nation after the games last night, but they were talking through the bubble, and you look at a team like North Carolina that's in the kind of that same category as Georgia. And I understand North Carolina has the brand name and everything, but they are 1-10 in quad 1 games this year, whereas Georgia, they have 3 quad 1 wins. And part of that is just playing in the SEC. But, you look at that and you go, all right, when they get into this committee room and they're making these tough decisions, you just hope that a team like Georgia is going to be rewarded for the big wins that they've had here in the SEC.
Well, like the stock market, when you get to this time of the year, every single game, every single day, it will change the markets. And what I mean by changing the markets, I'm talking about, of course, Vegas. What happened last night? Alabama gets a big win. Florida goes the other direction, and we've already seen a swing in regards to the odds who's going to win the national championship. So last night on the Vegas Stats and Info Network, or also we call it VISIN, VSIN radio, this is what they had to say last night about Florida's loss to Georgia and how the odds for the NCAA tournament have now changed.
Florida drops a whole $1 back to $9.50 in the marketplace. Alabama, what they score, 1 million points last night in their win. They actually move up from 12-1 to 11-1. So there's that $1 adjustment, just like that, right? So Bama puts up 111 in their win over Mississippi State as they roll, and then you see the slight adjustments 24 hours later. I kind of like it, Jensen, that it shows me that at least the bookmakers, the games do matter. The results do matter, right? And you mentioned seeding and possibly what this could mean for Florida, a tougher route. I guess that all gets taken in real time, and no other moves at the top of the board here. Duke with a massive, easy victory yesterday over Miami. But what do you make of that, of Florida going to 950 from 850 just 24 hours ago?
Yeah, and I guess I'll answer your question with a question. I hope you've finally jumped in on Alabama, because I don't know if we'll see them in double digits for much longer, especially if they make a little run here in the SEC tournament.
There you go. So basically he's saying that you better grab Alabama now, which is an 11-1. I think that is the 6th best odds. The 5th best odds currently on the Vegas board to win the national championship. So you heard one of the analysts there said you need to jump on Alabama right now, because they believe that Alabama is about to go on a nice run. They still might lose at Neville Arena. Mm-hmm. They might lose Saturday against Tennessee, but it's a situation where if you look at the markets, Auburn is right now plus 350 to win the national championship. Duke is plus 370. They just went to Miami. I hope the Cavender twins, I hope they weren't in attendance watching that, or Carson.
That was brutal.
That was pretty bad. Mm-hmm. Houston has now the 3rd best odds at plus 750. You just heard them on VSiN talking about Florida Gators. They're now at plus 950. They were plus 850. So their loss to Georgia dropped them back, and now Alabama's closed the gap. They're at 11-1. Tennessee is 16-1, right behind Alabama. So it's a heavy SEC flavor, which is no big surprise based on what you're going to see come March Madness.
Yeah, and I think that's why last night was so big. I mean, obviously that was a big win for Alabama in terms of keeping their hopes of staying a 1 seed alive, but it just felt like it was a reminder for really the entire nation, anybody that's a college basketball fan, of, okay, this is why we've been talking about them. This is why a couple of weeks ago it was 1 versus 2 in Auburn versus Alabama. And I think for the team, right, it was just a confidence boost of, all right, this is how well we can play when we are playing our A game. And you just hope that is a sign between what you've gotten from Mark Sears the last couple of games, then this performance against Mississippi State. You just hope that this is the start of a trend, and this is Alabama showing, hey, we're about to start playing our best basketball at the right time of year, and you just hope that that's the case for them moving forward.
Molly, our poll question of the day has to do with Alabama's surge now in the polls and also possibly in the bracket.
Yeah, so today we ask, does last night's SEC basketball results now guarantee Alabama as one of the number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament? Yes, the Georgia over Florida did it, or no, you got to beat Tennessee on Saturday. And right now winning by a lot is no, with 81%, yes with only 19%.
So 81% of our audience is saying, hold the phone.
Got to beat Tennessee.
Got to beat the Vols this weekend. And then you can possibly feel good, no matter what happens against Florida and Auburn, that you would be guaranteed a number 1 spot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I voted no as well. I do think if you beat Tennessee, because
imagine that him being negative about Alabama.
I knew that
Shocker.
one was coming. But no, I mean, you beat Tennessee because that was the discussion of, would a loss to Tennessee, would that kind of flip flop them and Alabama in terms of the seeding? But no, I think that coupled with Florida losing to Georgia, which is a worse loss than Alabama has on their resume. Yeah, if you beat Tennessee, I think you're locked into a 1 seed, but that's that's going to be a tough place to play, as we know.
When we come back on 3-Man Front, we'll recap the other games last night on the SEC docket. We'll start a preview of tonight's game between Ole Miss and Auburn that you can hear right here on Jocks 94.5. Pregame show begins at 5:30. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. At 10:45, we're going to talk to one of the largest Florida Gator fans you're ever going to hear on the radio, and I'm talking about Brian Edwards from Vegas Insider. Remember last week, as he wrapped up our segment where he said, who wants some of the Gators? Well, I guess Georgia did last night. It was really funny watching Kirby Smart sitting courtside. And then at one point, I think it was Dave Neal where he goes, oh, yeah, Kirby's already left the building because he's worried about the storming of the court. And then the cameras like swung around and showed Kirby he's still standing there. Now, he did leave right before the end of the game.
Before they did actually storm the court?
Yeah, so that will cost Georgia a little money. I'm waiting for the SEC email to come out.
I know Kirby's like, God, that was my third string long snapper right there. That money's gone. He's worried about that depth.
Yes, he is. So tonight down on Auburn's Plains, you're going to have a very interesting game as the Ole Miss Rebels 8-6 in conference play taking on the Auburn Tigers, who is number 1 in the SEC, number 1 in America. Auburn won in Oxford earlier this season. If you remember that game, it was 92-82. 8 minutes left to go in the game. Ole Miss only trailed by 1.
I'll say Padula had a big game.
He did. He went for 29 points. And if you look at this Ole Miss team, it's very interesting because they have 6 players averaging double figures, led by Sean Padula, who is a transfer from Virginia Tech, around 15 points per game. Auburn is the 3rd best team in the SEC shooting from behind the three-point arc. They have been really coming on of late, 36%. Denver Jones, matter of fact, he is averaging 44% from deep.
That's remarkable.
That is a very good clip. Tigers are 12-1 at home. They are 54-17 versus the Rebels on the plains of Auburn, but they're only 7-6 at Neville Arena.
Interesting.
It's not an endorsement. I'm just reading. I'm just telling you the history.
Oh, it's a hotty toddy endorsement. We know what it is.
No, it is not.
No, it's okay.
It is.
So with the win tonight over Ole Miss, Auburn would set a program record for the best SEC start through 15 games in Auburn history. They would be 14-1. The Tigers started 9-0 in SEC play for the 3rd time in program history, 2nd time in the last 4 seasons this year. So according to ESPN stats and information, Auburn has an 88% chance of winning the game tonight. I would give it a little bit higher than that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, and if, social media yesterday was any indication, maybe Ole Miss is a little distracted today.
Maybe so. ESPN Stats and Info predicts the score to be 85-74.
See, I look at this game similar to how I looked at the game last night between Alabama and Mississippi State, where, it's the second time you're playing them. The first time you had to go on the road and you were able to win. Alabama with a close win over Mississippi State. Auburn did get that 10-point win, but as you said, it was a competitive basketball game.
Yeah, 8 minutes left. It was a 1-point game.
Yeah, and now you're coming back home to Neville. I'm probably never going to sit here and predict somebody's going to win a basketball game by 30 points like Alabama did last night. But, if I'm looking at Auburn, they're what, a 12.5-point favorite, somewhere around that?
It's 13 now.
13? I'm expecting a big win for Auburn tonight, similar to, again, it's, hey, we beat this team in their arena by double digits when their player was going off, had almost 30 points in Padula. All right, now they're coming to our arena. Let's limit Padula. If we can get him to maybe 18, 20, something like that instead of approaching 30. I feel like if you're Auburn, you got to feel pretty good about this the spot you're in tonight.
Let's hear from Bruce Pearls. He previews tonight's game against the Rebels.
As you guys know, making history matters to us. And so with 4 games to go in the regular season, we recognize the position that we put ourselves in. We also recognize that the next 4 games against all ranked opponents, 2 at home and 2 on the road, are going to be, challenging, and each one is going to play a unique challenge. And so, just like we've been doing all season long, we'll take them one game at a time. I thought one of our best efforts all year long was at Ole Miss, and I didn't realize how well we had played until 2 things really happened. One, Coach Beard talked about it after the game. He said, boy, those guys really played well, made shots, and based on his evaluation of how we were playing going in, and then how we played in that game, he was right. I didn't necessarily feel it at the time. I thought we would stand some great runs and answers for them, but we shot it exceptionally well. We played exceptionally well. I thought both teams played well. Our biggest challenge is we sent them to the foul line 35 times, which is, way too much. So we're going to have to defend, without fouling. And, it's 2 very, very veteran ball clubs. Ole Miss has got one of the best wins in the country this year, as do we, and that is, with a victory at Alabama, which is obviously one of the best teams in the country and a very tough place to get out of there with a win. So Ole Miss has played well on the road, and there's a lot, obviously a tremendous amount on the line for both clubs.
As Bruce Pearl previewing tonight's game, you can hear the game right here on Jocks 94.5 pregames at 5:30. Other games in the Southeastern Conference last night, Mizzou's hitting their stride. Not that they were playing the likes of Alabama or Auburn last night, but they were playing South Carolina. Caleb Grill, man, he's on a roller coaster. He goes off against Alabama. Then he's pretty much a no-show against Arkansas.
Had a good first half and then no-show in the second half and then last night.
Yeah, then he has 22 points. He was 9 of 11 from the floor in shooting.
That'll work.
Last night for the Tigers as they win 101-72. The Tigers are now 21-7, 10-5 in league play. South Carolina has that one-game winning streak snapped.
Yeah, I guess that one win didn't totally rejuvenate them, but hey, you got one.
That's right.
You got one.
You can't take that one away from you unless the NCAA finds something that they can take it away.
I really hope that they don't, because that would be that'd be pretty bad if they found some recruiting violations on this team.
Yeah, they didn't do a very good job recruiting if that was the case. So Tennessee goes down to Baton Rouge. They win kind of a lackluster performance, 65-59. It is the 7th game in conference play for Tennessee that they have held their opponent under 60 points. That's how stingy they are on defense. So you mentioned that earlier with Alabama coming up on Saturday. Bama's going to have to probably get about 70, 75 points.
Yeah, that would be my expectation. I'm looking here now. All right, so they scored 81 in the win against Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago, 85 against when they beat Missouri earlier in the season as well. And outside of that in SEC play, they haven't cracked above 80. So right there, yeah, if you're Alabama, 75, 80 points, you feel like you've got a pretty good chance there unless, you turn the ball over 20 times.
And how consistent has this Tennessee Volunteers basketball program been? Think about this for a second. The Volunteers have won 50 of its past 64 basketball games, 24 of its past 33 SEC conference games. That's consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they can't get over the hump.
I was about to say
when
that's,
you get to postseason. But, you are a competitive bunch, at least in the regular season. But that's impressive. 50 of 64 games, they have been victorious.
Well, and that's the most shocking thing about Tennessee every year, right? Is they've been a force in the regular season for, the last handful of years in recent memory under Rick Barnes, and it just never translates to the tournament. So maybe, who knows? Maybe this is the year. But, a win over Alabama, I think, would certainly help you out in terms of optimism and people's expectations for you heading into the postseason.
So besides Ole Miss and Auburn, you got Vandy at A&M tonight. That's a 6 o'clock tip-off.
Watch out, A&M.
2 games at 8 o'clock. Kentucky at Oklahoma. That's going to be interesting. Oklahoma can maybe cement themselves.
Big opportunity.
Sure
home.
is. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, I'm not sure how many people will be watching this one, but this one has a lot riding on it. Texas at Arkansas.
I think this is the best game of the night because you have 2 bubble teams that are, Texas is in a little better spot than Arkansas, but this is
kind of an elimination game.
Yeah, and you got a little rivalry aspect to it with Texas and Arkansas. But yeah, this is a game that we might look back on a couple weeks and go, man, the winner of that game is in the tournament, the loser is not. So
Brian Edwards is going to join us in about 15 minutes from Vegas Insider. Will give us his picks for tonight and the weekend. Chris Stewart, the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, he'll join us at 11. Peter Radakus from AL.com, he covers the Auburn Tigers. He will join us in the 12 o'clock hour along with Jonathan Nelson, the general manager of the Birmingham Barons. Spring training going on in Major League Baseball. A lot of things happening here in Birmingham at Regions Field that Jonathan will be able to share with us. So much to get into on this Wednesday. We also welcome your text messages on the Courtesy GMC text line at 205-834-9450. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. 10:34, Jocks 94.5 on another gorgeous day, 76 degrees. That's the predicted high later today. Get out and enjoy yourself. I did some yard work late yesterday afternoon, and it was very nice outside.
I know. I don't have socks on today. It's great.
Don't tell me that. Well, we could have some cold weather coming back, so schedule your system checkup now from a Train comfort specialist. Train has been recognized for 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand and our exclusive home comfort partners here at Jocks. So go and visit train.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
We have a little bit of breaking news in the state of Alabama. This just coming out just a few moments ago. The University of Oklahoma, they have hired Senior Bowl Executive Director Jim Nagy as their general manager for their football program. So Jim Nagy is leaving Mobile and the Senior Bowl to take over as the general manager for the Oklahoma football program. Jim Nagy has done an outstanding job in Mobile. He has an impeccable reputation in regards to the National Football League and the scouting world. This is a home run hire, in my opinion, for Oklahoma. A good hire for them. So it is.
And he interviewed for the Jets general manager position.
He did
late last year, and I thought that was a very cool opportunity for him. But yeah, no, I agree with you. That's an absolute home run hire for Oklahoma. I mean, again, you had a guy that was potentially going to be an NFL general manager coming to run things for you in Norman. That's massive.
Yeah, OU is implementing a progressive new structure uniquely tailored to meet the most current challenges in college football. That's what the school put out. So Jim Nagy leaving the Senior Bowl in Mobile, which he has just done an incredible job, heading to Norman, Oklahoma.
Well, good. We'll still get to see him at SEC Media Days.
So you're seeing that general manager position become an even more and more important role in a football program. Let's go to the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Pat, we have to start out today with a little bit of a downer from our buddy Parlay Pete. Rough night for him last night. He sends in, I got smoked last night. He had a 14 parlay. He had Suns +8, which hit. But then he had South Carolina +14, Tennessee -9, and Louisville -8. So a rough one for him, but it does look like you got your free play of Alabama -7.
Do you guys remember what play I gave on the air yesterday? Do you remember that? The under of Iowa and Illinois. Did you see what happened in that game?
Didn't score a lot.
It's the Big Ten for you.
Just like in football.
Don't ask me about the other games that I played for entertainment purposes.
I need to look at the what the 11 a.m. slate's looking like today. If we have any good
just wait till the conference tournaments start.
Oh, I know. Yeah, what is it going to be like for you that Thursday when we're broadcasting, doing the first day of the NCAA tournament? We're trying to do a show, and Pat's over there trying to fire in all these bets.
He's gonna have 6 computers.
Oh, I know.
And couple monitors set up.
You're gonna have to go bet on put in your bid on some of those Woj iPhones so you can have multiple multiple ways to fire in. Let's see. We have Alan text in and says, good to hear Molly back to 100%, close to 100%.
I would say she's kind of like Janai Broom.
Great analogy.
Thank you.
Janai Broom's about 70-80%. I would say Molly's about 70-80%.
I can talk again, which is good.
Molly's putting up 30 and 14 today. I can feel it. It's just
one of
those days for her.
She was telling me before the show all the weird fever dreams she's been having.
Some weird ones.
Yeah, very odd. You need to get some of those checked out. You need to get
I have an appointment scheduled.
Dream specialist.
I'd say a lot of them mean something, Molly. So
yes.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Something about vape stores. I don't know. It's crazy.
All right. William, he chimes in. He says, so Alabama's hanging their hat on a Mississippi State win. Okay. Well, it's a top 25 win. It's a good win. Didn't know top 25 teams were bad. Let's see. Mike, he chimes in. Bama, including the SEC tournament, needs to finish 3-2 to guarantee a number 1 seed. I would say that sounds about right. You definitely can't lose all 3 games here in the regular season. But yeah, even if you go 1-2, you're going to have a win over a top 6 team. And, then you need a couple of wins in the SEC tournament. So yeah, I think that'll hold true, Mike. We'll see. Josh in Huntsville, he chimes in. He says, I guess the Tennesseans spoke too soon about Florida being the number 1 team or the most dangerous team in the SEC.
They sure did. They came out yesterday and said that Florida was the team most likely to win the national championship.
It's a good lesson. And sometimes, being different doesn't mean that it's going to pay out for you.
Very true.
Let's see. Will asks, is a college general manager the equivalent to what a recruiting coordinator used to be back in the day in college football?
Pretty much, yeah.
You just have a little more leeway with things.
Yes.
A little bit easier to do your job, I would think.
Yeah, very, very much so. Your budget's probably a little bit higher than it used to be.
Yeah, no McDonald's bags either or anything like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Drake, he chimes in, our resident Florida fan. He says, I told you guys yesterday, Florida could not take Georgia lightly. Well, I'll be honest. I just didn't expect, it was kind of similar to the Georgia-Auburn game, right? Where early on, Florida struggling, Georgia playing some solid defense, but they had the offense to match it where they didn't in the Auburn game. But I mean, hey, the fact that Florida was down 26 and they came back and like you brought up, Pat, I mean, they took the lead. It was a 1-point lead, but they took the lead with under a minute and a half to go. Still pretty impressive, but yeah, that's a tough loss there for the Gators. Let's see. Cowboy says he's not wearing socks today either, but he's wearing boots. I don't know.
It's good to hear from Cowboy. Cowboy needs to come see us.
Absolutely.
On Tuesdays.
I don't know if I'd go sockless and boots. That sounds rough, but more power to you. Let's see. And Robert chimes in. He says, Alabama now has 9 top 25 wins this season. I think 3 wins will get Alabama a number 1 seed for the NCAA tournament. So I guess kind of like what Mike was chiming in earlier. If you go 3-2 here over your last 3 games of the regular season and the SEC tournament, get a couple wins there, maybe Alabama will secure that 1
I agree
seed.
with our poll question. I think if they beat Tennessee,
You're good.
On Saturday, I think it's going to be very difficult because that is going to be your 11th quad 1 win, and you're beating a top 5 opponent in the University of Tennessee on their court.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty huge.
And with Florida losing, I guess if Florida beats you, maybe they would jump up over Alabama. But again, the concern was that both Florida and Tennessee were going to get 1 seeds and Alabama would get knocked out. And now that doesn't look quite as likely, but you do probably need to win at least one of those games. But 205-834-9450, continue to chime in on the courtesy GMC text line. We will continue to read your text throughout the show.
Brian Edwards is going to join us next from Vegas Insider. Jocks 94.5. Each and every Wednesday here on Three Man Front, we are so happy to be joined by Brian Edwards from Vegas Insider, MajorWager.com. He comes on, gives us his thoughts on what's going on tonight, whether it's college basketball, NBA. We've got some big games coming up this weekend, and he joins us on the Buyers Ride Hotline. Man, Brian, I was sweating it out last night in Athens because I know that you kept firing in on some live line action during that game, and I thought you were going to come away with a big money line winner last night, but it just didn't happen.
Oh, almost. I had a plus 312 and a plus 720 money line.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. Yeah, it was almost very nice. But I also had my bigger positions were plus 9.5 and plus 14.5. So now I did have the Gators for the game and the first half, so I'm not acting like it was some huge win, because it wasn't. But it was almost an enormous win if I'd hit those money lines.
Well, I kept watching you on social media, and I was like, okay, Brian still has faith here. You know, I think at one time you fired in at plus 9, and then I saw you go. You said you sprinkled a little bit.
14.5. At one point, we were down 25 or 6. I got 14.5.
So you got 14.5, and then I saw you said you were going to sprinkle a little bit on the money line, and then with 1:23 left in the game when they went up, I was like, okay, good for Brian. Brian's going to be in a good mood tomorrow. So,
well, I'm not in a bad mood, but I was almost in a great mood.
There you
I
go.
did have Bama first half and the over, which the over wasn't really looking that great.
Yeah, tell me about it, Brian.
Right, but it got there, and I didn't have Bama for the game, just the first half, and then I had the over, and I had Missouri in that late night slot as well, first half and game. So it wasn't a great night, but it was okay. I actually, on one account, I came out ahead, and on a couple of other accounts, I was down just a touch. So I was basically break even last night.
Well, Brian, for tonight, just looking at some of the games we have here in the SEC, you do have Auburn. They're a double-digit favorite tonight against Ole Miss. Auburn, we saw them beat Ole Miss by 10 points earlier in the season. Now they're making the trip to Neville Arena. How do you see this game tonight for Auburn, a double-digit favorite over the Rebels?
I made Auburn 11. I've seen it like move from 12.5 up to like 13.5 now. So technically I lean Ole Miss, but I'm not. It's a pregame pass for me. I'd love for Ole Miss to, play well early and, maybe get a live line on Auburn down there in single digits, maybe -7 or fewer, I would probably bite. But it's a pregame pass.
In regards to the live line, I'm just curious. Do you find the most value in that, setting up a scenario like you just talked about where, let's say, Alabama has been victim to this, not so much for Auburn, but Alabama will come out very slow and they'll fall behind like they did to Kentucky, 20-6. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they go on an incredible run and just blast them out of the water. Is that the most value to you right now, is looking at some of these situations and not doing a preconceived point spread as of right now, what Vegas has it, but kind of wait and kind of see what's going on at least the first 5-6 minutes of the game?
Yeah. So like, if you're looking at a game and for instance, Auburn's 13.5 and you're like, oh, that's way too many, but man, if they were 7 or 8, I would, love to take them. So, and when you look for that, I mean, it materializes way more than 50% at some point in the game. I always try to get a much better line on a live line than it was originally. Like, for example, the Gators last night, they were -6.5 or 7 pregame, and I'm getting plus 9.5 and the plus 14.5, that is 21 points of value from the original line. Like the Gators, when they were down by 6 to LSU at halftime the other night, so they're -9 in the second half, down by 6. So that's -3 adjusted. I mean, actually, that was not near as much value as last night because they were -9.5 pregame against LSU. But all my live lines and halftime betting, I'm looking to get a lot better line than it was pregame. The only time I would take a line on a live line that's worse than it was pregame is if there's like an injury or foul trouble or, something of that nature that would make me, like a team for the, live bet.
Brian, I want to go back to the SEC here for a minute because we have, we have 4 games going on tonight, but another one, an 8:00 tip tonight. You've got Kentucky coming off that loss to Alabama over the weekend. They're going on the road to Norman. It looks like the Cats right now somewhere around a 3-point favorite, but you imagine this is a big opportunity for Oklahoma, hoping to cement their status as an NCAA tournament team. So how do you feel about the Cats going on the road to face Oklahoma tonight as a slight favorite?
I like Kentucky, although they've struggled on the road, but they are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. The only non-cover to Bama the other night, and the non-cover was only by a point. But they've got their second and third leading scorer, Jackson Robinson and Lamont Butler. They are back tonight. Robinson's missed 4 games in a row. Butler's missed 3 games in a row. Butler leads them in steals and assists. So they've got reinforcements on the way. And they're in bounce-back mode off the loss to Bama. So I like Kentucky -3 at OU.
All right, what about Texas A&M? Them and Vandy. Vandy has been a surprise team in the Southeastern Conference. What do you think about this one between the Aggies and the Commodores?
I think it's a good line. 7.5 is what I saw a few minutes ago. I made A&M -8. When I make a spread and it's within a half point or a point, that means I don't want anything to do with that game. I'm wanting my spread to be a lot different than the spread actually is.
Brian, there's a team in the Big 12. They're now, and they just entered the top 25 this week. They've been playing really good basketball lately. That's BYU coming off a big back-to-back wins over Kansas and Arizona. Now they're going to play Arizona State. BYU somewhere around a 4.5 point favorite, it looks like, on the road tonight. Do you think BYU can keep up their hot streak they've been on the last couple of times out?
I do. I like BYU tonight, laying the 4.5. They've won 4 in a row, both straight up and against the spread, including 2 on the road. They won at West Virginia. They won at Arizona the other night, although a little bit of controversy. And in between, they beat Kansas by 34 and beat K-State by 15 at home. And going back further, their last 10 games, the Cougars are 8-2 straight up, 7-2-1 ATS, and a couple more road wins. They won by 6 at UCF and won by 16 at Colorado. Arizona State has lost 7 home games in a row to fall to 5-7 straight up, 4-8 ATS and 12 home games this year. And when they played on New Year's Eve in Provo, BYU beat them by 20. I like the Cougars -4.5.
So let me ask you about Saturday. I know you like to look at future games and you make point spreads based on your information. What about Bama at Tennessee coming up on Saturday? That is a big game between those two.
Yep, I made the Vols -2, and then I went and looked to see what Ken Palm's projection was. They have the Vols -5. So Ken Palm's usually pretty close. But, then the market determines it. And Ken Palm isn't always, right there.
Sure.
I'm guessing I'm so high on Bama just in general. I think Vols will probably open maybe 3.5, maybe, right there in the middle between me and Ken Palm. If Bama were getting 4 or more, I might be interested in them, but I also might think, let me see if I can get them live +7 or 8 and end up passing pregame. We'll see. How much time we got? I can rip off all my lines for Saturdays.
Absolutely. You go for it. You got time.
All right. A&M at Florida. I've got the Gators 8.5. Auburn, I've got -4 at Kentucky. Arkansas, I've got 3.5 at South Carolina. If Thiero, their leading scorer, doesn't play, he's out tonight. If he does play, I've got Arkansas -5 at South Carolina. I've got Ole Miss -8 at home to Oklahoma. Mississippi State 8.5 at home to LSU. That one will probably be higher. I just kind of like how LSU's playing right now.
Right.
I've got Mizzou only -4 at Vandy. Vandy's been tough at home, and I've got Texas 6.5 at home to Georgia. And as for Arkansas tonight, I made them 6, but that was before I knew Thiero was out, and I think he's about a 1.5, 2 point difference to line. Now it's 3.5. I guess I kind of lean Arkansas. Texas is 0-5 against the spread in its last 5. But Arkansas is down to a 7-man rotation without Sierra tonight.
So real quick, Brian, for any of our people out there that maybe want to dip their toes into a little bit of ACC hoops going on tonight, you do have Virginia traveling to take on Wake Forest. Wake Forest a favorite in that one tonight. Do you have a lean one way or the other with Virginia and Wake Forest tonight?
I'm on over 133. The over is 9-0-1 for Virginia in its last 10, 14-2-1 in its last 17. Now, Wake Forest has been an under team this year, but this is their second lowest total of the year, and its lowest since November 29th. And the Demon Deacons' last 6 combined scores, 158, 143, 142, 142 again, 152, and 150. And my favorite tonight is Boise State -4.5 at home to Utah State. Big revenge game. They lost a heartbreaker in the final seconds at Utah State. And Boise State has won 6 in a row at home, both straight up and against the spread. All those wins by at least 8, 5 of them by double digits. In fact, they're 12-1 straight up in 13 home games, winning by double digits 11 times and winning by 13 or more 10 times. So I like Boise State -4.5 to Utah State, and a little for less, Boise -2.5 in the first half.
That is our main man, Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, MajorWager.com, and also a great contributor to Southeastern 16. Brian, have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with you next Wednesday.
Thanks, all. Y'all have a great week as well.
Thank you. That is Brian Edwards joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. The voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart, joins us next. Brought to you by Craneworks, right here on Jocks. Welcome back in. It's hour number 2 of Three Man Front. Pat, Conrad, Molly, Landry will be back with us on Monday. Appreciate Brian Edwards from Vegas Insider joining us just a few moments ago. We're always happy to be joined each and every Wednesday. Brought to you by Craneworks. Chris Stewart, the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah, the big dog's got it.
Crimson Tide Network's Chris Stewart on Three Man Front is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it. The big dog's got it. And now, Chris Stewart.
Chris joins us on the Buyer's Ride Hotline. Man, Chris, it was a fun time at the old Coliseum last night.
It was pretty nuts. Pat, I apologize for having to, we just tipped the thing off, and I'm needing to call about a 30-second timeout. But I'm about to be in an elevator.
Go ahead.
And
we can vamp. We can vamp.
And I just don't want to. I don't want to have it all garbled. If you don't mind.
No, that's okay.
Apologize.
No,
So,
you're good. You take your time. We can vamp. That's what we do here in radio. And as Chris is going to join us, we're going to talk about Alabama's big 111-73 win. Bama hits those 11 first-half threes. That was an impressive performance by Youngblood and Sears in the first half. But overall, the Tide hitting 22 three-pointers. That's a season high. Chris Youngblood, big night, 27 points for Alabama.
I looked it up in the break, too, for Youngblood. It may just be a maroon thing because he shot 50% from three against A&M this year, too.
It has to be the maroon thing or facing teams that have Adidas kits. Maybe so.
Maybe that's it.
I'm not really sure. So the Tide now 23-5, 12-3 in the SEC. They hit that little snag where they lost 2 games in conference play, but then all of a sudden, look at what they've done against Kentucky and at home last night against Mississippi State. So the 10th quad 1 win for Alabama. That is the second most nationally, only behind the Auburn Tigers. And it was their 9th win versus an AP top 25 opponent this season, which is also a school record.
Yeah, and the remarkable thing, when we look at Auburn, too, is, Alabama, let's say they go on an incredible run here and they beat Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn. That'd obviously be a fantastic way to start the season, but you still wouldn't be able to catch Auburn in quad 1 wins. Nobody's going to be able to catch them in quad 1 wins. That's just how impressive they've been. But to be 10-5 in quad 1 games and then undefeated in quads 2, 3, and 4, that maybe is equally as impressive as you haven't had one of those big letdown games against, I guess, what you would consider lesser competition.
Season high of points. 8th time Bama has scored more than 100 points. 15th time above 90 points, which is the most in college basketball. 11th straight game in which they have scored 80 plus. And now that's going to be tested big time on Rocky Top come Saturday.
Yeah, we know they like to play defense, and that's been it's a difficult place for anybody to play. Tennessee's been a difficult team for Alabama here over the last couple of years, but if you just get some semblance of the offensive firepower you had last night, you have to think that's going to bode pretty well. But, if Lanier goes out there and does what he did the other night and has, 30 points like he did against A&M, you might see a little bit of a higher scoring matchup there. But, Rocky Top's certainly a tough place to play, and they are as well aware as anyone that a win in that one is very likely to help them get that number 1 seed.
I hope he's not stuck on the elevator.
That would be unfortunate. Have you ever been stuck in an elevator before, like for a long time?
No, there's been a couple times in this building that it got a little.
You mean every day?
It got a little questionable, but no. Fortunately, I have not.
I got stuck in an elevator at a condo at the beach, one of the big high rises. It's in there for about an hour. Not fun. Do not recommend that.
Man, you've just had all sorts of crazy things happen to you.
I have. Oh, okay. Well, I guess there goes the elevator.
Don't say that.
Hopefully Chris will rejoin us here in just a second.
Yes. We must have lost his cell as he was going into. Yeah, give him a call.
You never know what you're going to get on 3-Man Front, right?
No, that's okay. It's what we do here. We vamp.
Well, while we try to reconnect with Chris, why don't I go ahead and tell you about my friends over there at Easy Hemp Company, because Easy is a refreshing new beverage that's reliably microdosed with 3 milligrams of D9 THC and 3 milligrams of CBD per serving. It's also non-alcoholic and free of any added sugar, so you're not going to have to worry about any of those annoying day after hangover effects. And as we get into the warmer weather here, it's a great way to stay refreshed. So if you're looking for that social buzz that comes with no regrets, try Easy Hemp Co. They're available at Piggly Wigglies across the state or you can visit them online at easyhempco.com to have it shipped directly to your doorstep, or use their Easy Finder map to find a location near you.
Okay, we are trying to get him back on the air. Must be.
Maybe so.
Might be going to one of the big high rises downtown Birmingham.
Well, I'm just thinking, depending on where he is, I'm trying to think of the different elevators around campus and where he might be. That
I think
some of them take a little while. At least it wasn't the train. Then we wouldn't be talking to him for 30 minutes.
That is correct. So yeah, let's try this again with Chris. Chris, I was about to call the fire department to get you out of a stuck elevator. I thought something had happened to you.
I will start it off by simply saying I'm in Atlanta, and that just normally explains everything from there. But my daughter lives here, working here now, and it happened to time out terribly. I'm sorry.
No,
So
you're
I'm
good.
with you.
No,
Go.
you are good. I didn't know if you were maybe down at the Harbert Center in downtown Birmingham, or going up to the 30th floor, whatever the case may be. So no, we're all good, man.
34th floor of a wonderful place in Midtown Atlanta, where my daughter is living. My first time to see it, and I'm excited too. But I appreciate you having me on, and just sorry that I was late.
No, that is no problem at all. So let's go back to last night, Chris, because obviously a lot of people started getting a little nervous after those back-to-back losses, but man, coming home and doing what they have done offensively and playing defense last night against Mississippi State. Just your overall thoughts on where this Alabama team currently is.
Pat, I was trying to tell people you're absolutely right when you say Alabama didn't play well in its last two games, and that is concerning because you did have a very good Mississippi State on the docket last night. We know how great the teams are that we're about to face in this stretch run. At the same time, you could have played well and lost each of the last two games because of who you were facing in those contests. So the record itself or the two losses are disappointing, but I didn't feel like they were the need to panic. And thankfully, Alabama came out and played one of its best games of the season last night. And yes, it's natural that people would point to 22 threes made, which is not a school record, but it's among the best ever, and get all excited about that. But truly what made it such a dominating win was what they did defensively. And you're not going to make 22 threes every night. You're not going to make 15 or more every night. But you can bring the effort defensively that Alabama brought last night. That is something that you, as an individual player, but collectively as a team, control. And I think this, we can look back, and hopefully this will be a defining moment for this team where they understood, our offense was great, but it was triggered by what we did on the defensive end. And they're going to need that effort and then some with what they've got ahead, not only these three games, but in the SEC tournament and then the NCAA tournament. It's amazing to think. Ponder this for a second, guys. The easiest game that Alabama may play next will be in the NCAA tournament. And it may be after that, the second easiest game is the second round game.
It's crazy.
Of the NCAA tournament. That's just what they put themselves in position to do. And at the same time, how great the SEC is.
So, Chris, I wanted to ask you, the last couple of games, I know we talked about, there were some disappointing performances in there with the back-to-back losses, but I think something that has made a huge difference the last few times out has been putting LeBaron Philon back in the starting lineup, letting Mark Sears operate without the ball in his hands as much, free him up to get some of those better looks. And we've seen, obviously, back-to-back 30-point games. He has 21 last night, 5 of 12 from 3. So just what difference have you seen from this Alabama team since Nate Oates made that decision to put Philon back in the starting lineup? Because it seems to have it certainly provided the spark he was looking for.
Yeah, I think LeBaron's confidence has picked back up again. We saw it on the offensive end with his own shooting, but also with what he's done defensively. I mean, he's gone against some great offensive players and done a really good job. But you're right. to be able to let Mark play off the ball a little bit has definitely helped him. And whether you're talking about LeBaron or whether you're talking about Aiden Holloway, you've got two phenomenal players that are options. And look, we talk about the depth of the roster, and we have from the start of the year, and it is still a roster that most of the country would love to have. But when you didn't have Latrell, playing without Latrell Reitzel, you lose not only your best perimeter defender, but percentage-wise, your best three-point shooter. So it's another weapon, another option, a guy that you could play Mark at the point and let Latrell play off the ball, and it created opportunities for both. You've missed him. Houston Millette, fantastic shooter and a really good defender. So you've missed two tremendous defensive players on that end of the floor, and then Darion Reed, who's been out and still hopeful we'll get him back. A versatile player that can probably go three spots comfortably on the floor, a scorer, but also a guy who can defend at a high level. Those are pieces that you missed, and nobody's going to feel sorry for you because everybody's dealing with injuries, and there is such a wealth of talent for Alabama that they're still in a better spot than most. But that doesn't change the fact that some of what Alabama has needed most is not available to them and won't be for the rest of the year.
Well, one guy that has definitely showed up in the box score over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that's Mo Diabate. He only played 17 minutes last night. Not too shabby, Chris, when you go for a double-double in 17 minutes.
Yeah, pretty good efficiency, isn't it? Mo is a really talented guy who has gone from being somebody that gets his points in mop-up stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. He's still getting them off of putbacks. He's still getting, offensive boards, loose ball situations, whatever. But even though it wasn't as much of that last night, he is a guy you can either throw the ball to, and if there's a mismatch, he can get to the rim and score, or we've seen him in the last month plus bring the ball off the rim defensively, bring it up the floor, and if they don't pick him up and make him get the ball out of his hands, he is more than capable of getting to the rim. He's become a more complete offensive player, and it allows Nate Oates to play him more minutes so you can take advantage of what he does defensively and on the glass.
Talking with Chris Stewart, voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide here on Three Man Front, courtesy of our friends at Craneworks. So, Chris, another guy I wanted to ask you about specifically has had a really good back-to-back performances, and that's Cliff Amore. I know he won the hard hat over the weekend, I believe. He had a double-double, his first of the season. He goes for 8 points, 8 rebounds last night, only plays 19 minutes. But what have you seen from Cliff in these last 2 games that maybe makes you optimistic that we're starting to see the best version of him late in the season?
Confidence on both ends of the floor, even when he gets in a little bit of foul trouble, the ability to play effectively and aggressively without getting the fifth. I think this team, I think he is an example of the team as a whole, that so many great pieces that have been among, if not the best player on their most recent team, but they come together, whether it's a veteran like Clifford or whether you're talking about Chris Youngblood, and they come to a team that has some established guys like Mark and Grant, but also has some incredible young talent like LeBaron and Aiden Holloway. And I'm leaving guys out, but didn't throw in a Jaron Stevenson, who's a phenomenal player and is, finding his spot. Nobody is simply trying to get their own points on their own. They understand it's about the team first, and everything's going to come to you in the flow of the game if you'll do what you're supposed to do on both ends. And the unselfishness that they're showing the effort that they're playing with and the togetherness that's starting to really take hold for this team are all things that I believe are going to help them be a squad that's playing very deep into this season.
I know we asked you about this, about going to Rupp Arena. That is a very special place to call a game. Thompson Bowling has not been as friendly, maybe, as other venues around the Southeastern Conference. So your thoughts this weekend heading up to Rocky Top, playing a very good defensive team in Tennessee?
Well, you're going to have two of the top 6 teams in the country squaring off. It's, a game that has great meaning for the SEC and NCAA tournament seeding. And it's Alabama, Tennessee. Just period. That in and of itself will mean a lot. So it's going to be a great environment at a great building with 2 great teams. The national attention that it will garner, and deservedly so. I think we're all looking forward. I said going into the year, yes, it's going to be a brutally tough schedule. But as a basketball fan, and it's first and foremost a broadcaster and fan of Alabama, to play that schedule and also know you're going to have a chance to be successful night in and night out at the same time, knowing that if you don't play well, you can lose night in and night out. That edge, but still knowing that you're capable of winning, it's exciting and fun when you win a game like you did last night, because you beat a very good team badly. There's not a whole lot of joy in beating a bad team badly. But when you have success, whether it's by 2 or by 20 or whatever the final margin turned out to be last night, when you win, it is very, very meaningful to see that happen.
Chris, I want to ask you quickly about the end of the game last night and just kind of what it was like there in Coleman Coliseum when Max Charnowski comes off the bench. He gets in the game for the last couple of minutes. I mean, just me watching it on television, it was electric. And it was really cool because you could tell that, the other players on the court were trying to get him an opportunity to get a shot up. Unfortunately, it got blocked when he did get the shot up. But just what was it like? Because, in the final minutes of a game where you're up 30 plus, it's a Wednesday night or Tuesday night. I'm sure a lot of students are ready to go out and hit the bars or do whatever they do on a Tuesday night. But to see the entire crowd get into that moment of letting Max get on the court, just what was that experience like for you being there in Coleman?
Yeah, Max is a great young man. The only walk-on, I guess, on the roster right now. The only one that travels, and the opportunities, because of how tough the league is and margins at the end of the game are rare. And Nate wanted to not only get him in, but give him an opportunity to have the offense kind of run through him or to him. And what made it tough is that, State still had really good players on the floor as well. And Max is unselfish. The first time the ball came to him, a lot of guys, it would have been, let me put it this way, it would have been very understandable if he had let the 3-pointer fly.
Oh, the fans wanted it so bad.
Open. Yeah, we all did. And it was open for a millisecond, but it was a smart, unselfish play in the flow of the game to not take that shot, because it was probably going to be blocked and wind up in my lap courtside if he had put that one up. But I think it was a good move, and unfortunately just a little bit of hesitation on his part that allowed the shot to be blocked. And guys love him that play with him, respect him. The staff loves and respects him, and the fans love the underdog. And they called for him, and Nate obliged, and glad he got the opportunity. There was one other thing, they keep up with the plus minus, which, as you guys know, is tied into what happens while you're on the floor. Mm-hmm. What's the point margin for your team in the minutes collectively when you're on the floor? Every single player for Alabama was in the plus category, including Max, who only played 2 minutes. But Alabama, if you want to say 1 by 2 when he was out there, that was really cool, because it means everybody was doing their part to contribute to winning in that ball game, and that's what matters most. And that's why you're able to see them come closer together and be at such a high level where there's hopefully more of that to come.
Chris Stewart, the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide, brought to you each and every week, Chris, by Craneworks. Good people down, head by David Upton.
They are fantastic to me and to you guys and anybody that calls on them for equipment purchase, whether you're calling Craneworks or their Rental Works division. They've got a full line of equipment for any of your machinery needs. They've got operators for each of those types of equipment as well. They've got the equipment and the manpower. So find out more. Go to craneworks.com to get your quote, whether you're in Birmingham, Nashville, Mobile, or Huntsville. Again, online at craneworks.com.
Well, thank you, Chris. We look forward to talking with you again next week. Hope it's a good trip to Rocky Top.
Guys, again, apologize for being a couple minutes late, but appreciate y'all having me on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, be careful. That is Chris Stewart joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline.
Yes, and as all of our guests do on the Buyers Right Hotline, for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs, it's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
So don't wait until you got storm damage on your house or your property before you call Golston Tree Service. You need to call them now because you can talk about the health and the safety of the trees that you have on your property with a certified expert. I'm talking about an arborist. That's who runs Golston Tree Service at 205-337-4018. This is a family-owned and operated business for over 35 years. No job is too big or small. You've heard me for months talk about how much and how vital they are, not only to my property and stuff that has happened and fallen onto my roof or my deck. They can take care of you today. They've got 24-hour emergency storm work service as well. 205-337-4018. Golston Tree Service, no matter how big or how small the job is around your house, call them and let their certified arborist come and give you a free assessment of what's going on your property and if they can help you out. 205-337-4018. That is Golston Tree Service. Coming up a little bit later in the program, we will talk to Peter Ratterkus, who covers the Auburn Tigers for AL.com. Also, Jonathan Nelson, the general manager of the Birmingham Barons, will make his first appearance of 2025 on this radio show. This is Jocks 94.5. Pretty good crowd last night on a Tuesday night at Coleman Coliseum. Over 13,000 in attendance. Top 25 matchup between Alabama and Mississippi State. Appreciate Chris Stewart joining us each and every Wednesday on this show. Brought to you by Craneworks.
Well, you need to go and check out Big Whiskey's because they are the place for great food of all varieties. They have a full menu ranging from appetizers, salads, burgers to steaks. Their bar features unique cocktails, over 120 whiskeys, including whiskey on tap, and plenty of screens to catch all the games all weekend long. They also offer different food and drink specials for each day of the week. They have happy hour, and the kitchen is open late every single night. So go and check them out in the Stadium Trees Village off Highway 150 near the Hoover Met.
So yesterday afternoon, some word started getting out in Tuscaloosa that Kalen DeBoer in Alabama is looking to potentially change the way A-Day is conducted in Tuscaloosa. He told On3 Sports, a lot of times here, the A-Day game, it's been more of a practice, and there's been some scrimmaging, not necessarily much of a game. Even when I was at Fresno State, we called it the spring preview. Especially this year, there's some things we're working through with some injuries and so forth, so we'll definitely be modified. We want to try to have some type of event around April 12th, end of quote. How did you read that quote to mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that in the sense of what we've talked about with some of the other programs, I didn't get a sense that it's going to be like a closed spring scrimmage necessarily, in the sense where, you know, fans aren't going to be able to attend, or it's not going to be televised in some capacity or something like that. But I mean, yeah, maybe you just get maybe it's a shorter scrimmage than what you would normally get. Maybe you just scrimmage for the equivalent of a quarter or a half, and then you just throw in, you do some drills, some individual work, things like that on the field as well, so that the fans are still feeling like maybe they're getting to see something that they normally wouldn't get to see. But I would hope that it's still going to include it, and I have no reason to believe that there's not going to be a scrimmage element to it. It's just not going to be a traditional, 4-quarter, 60-minute, whatever scrimmage like we've gotten in the past.
DeBoer says he understands why some programs are canceling spring practice, saying Alabama understands the impact that putting things out there for the whole world to see and what they can do in the transfer portal world. So he does recognize that that is an issue that Matt Rule and other coaches have brought up before they made the announcement that they are doing away with their spring practices or their A-Day or their spring game. Alabama has not released any information about its A-Day game other than the date will be April the 12th. So Kalen DeBoer kind of giving a little bit of indication that it is definitely going to be different this year than what we have seen in the past.
So I had this thought, yesterday reading this news, and I can't imagine that the viewership is just through the wall for these spring games in a lot of cases. But, Alabama traditionally it's been on ESPN or one of the ESPN channels, right? Do you think there's a world where ABC, Disney, ESPN, whoever, they say, hey, we're paying you a lot of money for this media rights deal. It would really be great if you would let us continue to broadcast your spring games, because we are drawing in viewers there. Obviously, for the Alabamas, Auburns, Georgias of the world, you have very diehard fan bases that are going to tune in for that stuff. Is that something you could see being a problem in the future, where you have these networks that are, man, we're paying you a lot of money, we want to get as much of this out of it as we can, while the programs are going to say, we don't need this broadcast for every program out there to see our talent and try to poach players in the spring portal?
Well, it might not be on broadcast TV, but you have seen it in the last couple of years. If I'm not mistaken, I think Georgia might have been the only program that had their game on one of the linear channels of ESPN.
ESPN did, or Alabama did last year, because it was DeBoer's first one. I believe.
But I think the year before that, I think Saban's last year. I don't think it was.
It was on ESPN Plus, I think.
Yeah. Or the SEC Network Plus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they will definitely have it somewhere for you to view it. It might be behind a paywall in regards to online activity, but they will definitely use that in some form or fashion with their media outlets. But in regards to the linear TV, I'm not really sure if that's that big of a deal anymore for ESPN, because let's just face it, the last 4 or 5 years, the spring games have kind of, it hit its crescendo.
Yeah.
And then since then it's.
Well, you don't see a lot anyways, right? It's very basic stuff, because they don't want to show anything that they have in their playbook that they're actually going to want to use during the regular season.
Because there have been plenty of times in which Alabama and Auburn, there have been certain players that have actually stood out, and you're like going, oh boy, this guy is really going to be a head turner come fall practice.
Ajayi Hall.
And then you get in there, and it's absolutely different when you get into fall practice.
I'll never forget the first time I saw Tua, though.
You fell in love.
That beautiful A-Day game. Happy February 26th, everybody, by the way. Just throwing that out there. It's a wonderful day.
2nd and 26.
Oh, Molly, do you have something? I have a present for everybody.
Throw it away. Get outside of the pocket and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
That was back when Alabama won national championships.
I know. Such a wonderful time. It's the greatest. That is my favorite sports memory of my entire life, though, seriously, is that play. And obviously, everyone here knows I love Tua, so I just wanted to celebrate February 26th the proper way with a little trip down memory lane.
2:26. 2nd and 26.
He really wanted to make sure that I had that audio this morning.
I bet you.
Like, you got that audio right. And I said,
it's his ringtone on his phone. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I thought about wearing the jersey, but I thought that might be overkill, and
a little bit.
So we just went with the regular attire.
All right. So what took place in Dallas yesterday? I've got a report on reading between the lines and talking to some people around college football that kind of told me what really happened yesterday in Dallas. We'll share that with you next on 3 Man Front. 11:36 Jocks 94.5. So yesterday in Dallas, Texas, all the commissioners and the athletics director for Notre Dame showed up there at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport Hotel. They met until 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. So there were no decisions on a new college football playoff format for 2025 or beyond.
Shocker.
ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips said that they did discuss future formats, including the 12, 14, and 16 team variety. Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti did not meet or speak with reporters.
Okay.
Jim Phillips did.
Well, he loves talking.
Of course he did.
Jim Phillips had much more to say, including the following. For all of us, there's been somebody before us, and there will be somebody after us. It's pretty profound.
Very astute observation there, Jim.
Yes. You have to serve your constituents, but you can't be completely oblivious and not mindful of what's good for college football and the fans and what you're hearing from them. End of quote. I quote tweeted that yesterday afternoon, and I said, coming from a man that has been oblivious that two schools are kicking and screaming and doing everything possible to get out of his league.
Yeah, it's a classic case of maybe take your own advice, Jim.
The commissioners say they need more data and information from the college football playoff staff before making any decisions on any changes to this year's playoff, which requires, as we've discussed numerous times, a unanimous declaration from everybody in the room. Now, the Big Ten and the SEC have made it known that they want straight seeding for 2025. College Football Playoff Executive Director Rich Clark says historic data is needed to inform the decision on changing the 2025 playoff format. Commissioners will meet again in March. I say to the good general, what other data do you need? You've only had 1 year of the expanded playoff. You can't go back and look at the BCS from 2008. That was just a bizarre comment along with Jim Phillips' bizarre comment. Rich Clark also said that the SEC and the Big Ten did not formally propose a format for 2026 and beyond, but multi-AQs were broadly discussed in the room, which is no big surprise because that's what the SEC and the Big Ten discussed last week in New Orleans. So that's basically it. That's what came out yesterday. A lot of Jim Phillips, a little bit of Richard Clark, and nothing from Petitti or Greg Sankey. So it appears that their next meeting, which will be coming up in the next month or so, that will be the next opportunity for them to make some changes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that we didn't. I would have been absolutely floored if they came out yesterday afternoon and said, all right, here's the plan for moving forward for 2025 and 2026. It's all squared away. I think we knew that wasn't going to happen. But again, and maybe I'm just, I'm blind to this in a certain way. I don't understand the refusal to adopt the straight seating format. Now, maybe I could understand for a group of 5 representative, and it does have to be unanimous, like you said. But if you're from the Big 12 or the ACC, I mean, what good did it do you? You still would have gotten multiple teams in the ACC's case. I just don't understand why you're hanging on to that so much. I mean, if anything, would you not want to avoid having to play potentially a team like we saw with Ohio State this year in the first round this upcoming year? That seems like such an obvious slam dunk. And with Jim's comments about, you have to think about the greater good of what's good for the sport and what the fans want. From my vantage point, that was kind of the biggest issue or the biggest thing that fans said, oh yeah, that would be an easy solution for this year. Why did they not do that from the jump? So I don't know why they refused to.
Well, he's talking about serving your constituents. You're not serving the 2 schools that won out of your stupid league.
Well, no, because that doesn't benefit them.
That's why it's just an asinine statement. I mean, you have to serve your constituents, but you can't be completely oblivious and not mindful of what's good for college football and the fans and what you're hearing from them. Is it really good for college football that Florida State and Clemson don't want to be in your stupid league, but you're kicking and screaming and suing them and costing those 2 schools millions of dollars?
No, and the reality is, at least this last year, you'd have been better off if Florida State was out. It would have made your strength of conference, your strength of records look a little bit better for the committee.
But to say you're completely oblivious and not mindful of what's good for college football and the fans and who you're hearing from.
He's just talking out of his, what.
That is a tone-deaf statement from someone that I have had multiple people that have had lunches and dinners with Jim Phillips, and they really like him. They think he's really an outstanding guy. But for him to be a commissioner of a conference that you have two of your members that are doing everything under the sky to try to get out of the league, and you make these blanket statements. You notice that Brett Yormark didn't say anything.
Nope.
And I did not anticipate Sankey or Petiti to say anything because they said what they needed to say last week in New Orleans. And he said, we're going to give everybody in the room an update. Well, they gave everybody in the room an update. I mean, nothing's going to change. What's going to happen is they're going to kick the can down the road, and you're going to have the exact same thing in 2025 as you did in 2024. And then at that point in time, because nobody else wanted to play ball for 2025, then let the chips fall where they may in 2026 and beyond. So when the SEC and the Big Ten said, you know what, 4 is not enough. Give us 5. Well, what are these other conferences going to do? They're not going to do anything at all because they can't do anything because they've already ceded control to the SEC and the Big Ten. They're just fortunate that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are the type people where they really do care about the health of the game moving forward. That's why they're giving them a lifeline. Give us our 4. Then ACC, you take your 2 and be happy. The Big 12, you take your 2 and be happy, and everybody else that wants access, if you get the 1 or you're lucky enough to be in the top 14 or the top 16, take the bid and move on.
Yeah, and I mean, you can clearly tell, with Jim Phillips' comments and as asinine as they are, it's such a short-sighted thing, right? Because like you're saying, you would think it would probably benefit you to bend the knee right now, say, all right, let's go to the straight seeding. That's what you want for 2025. It's not really going to affect us. Sure, let's go ahead and make that done. That seems to be what the fans want. And then at least, hey, if you're Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, hey, maybe these guys are a little more agreeable now. Maybe now when we talk about the long-term future of the sport, we're going to be more likely to, give you an opportunity to speak up and take that into account.
It's just like politics. It's about horse trading.
Yep.
Like what can you do for me today? I'm going to put that in my folder, and then we'll see if that can help me out in the future. That's exactly what that is. And so to me, like you said, bend the knee. You go ahead and you think about the longevity of the game. Are you going to be better served by doing that in 2025? Or are you just going to let the Big Ten and the SEC just absolutely strong arm you if they feel the need to do that?
Well, our buddy Mike from Trustful, he texted and he said, Pat, was that a quote from Jim Phillips or Kamala Harris? We will be burdened by the unburdened. He likes to hear himself talk.
That was good. And the people that I know that know Jim, they like Jim. They think Jim's a great guy. They really do. But I don't know if the people from Durham, North Carolina or Chapel Hill or wherever, I don't know if they kind of get in his ear and they start talking that tobacco road and try to make sure that he does certain things. But yeah, those comments yesterday were just mind-numbing, to say the very least.
But very on brand.
Absolutely. More three-man front on this beautiful Wednesday. This is Jocks 94.5.
11:49 here on the Wednesday edition of Three Man Front. Conrad, Pat, Molly with you until 2 o'clock when we hand you off to the Paul Feinbaum Show. Landrum out, hitting the slopes in Colorado. He'll be back with us on Monday. But as we do each and every week here on the show, one of our favorite segments of the week, it is time for our buddy JR to join us today. Tell us where the smart money is going. And JR, before we get started here, I just want you to know, I've had somebody texting in the show this morning asking, when's JR coming on? When's JR coming on? Is he on today? And he said that he has hit his last 5 bets in a row, courtesy of you, JR. So you're making money for our listeners hand over fist.
You know what? I appreciate that. I really do, because, we do so much of this. And one of the guys that I rely on to get a lot of my games even said to me the other day, he goes, man, this is getting stressful. I can't tell you how many games that have come down to literally 1 point or a half a point, literally one after the other, but we're winning them. 85% of them are going our way. My top plays right now for my biggest clients have been hitting over 70%, close to 75% right now on top plays. And yes, we'd have hit 5 in a row for our clientele. We're coming off of hitting 11 in a row for clientele and 9 in a row for clientele just recently over the last couple of months. So one of the things that I teach people that's really important is utilizing strategy that actually fits the situation. So, if we're going to hit a high percentage, one of the things I point out is, look, even though we're hitting 70 to 75%, doesn't necessarily mean we're just going to go 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. We're going to win 9, 10, 11 in a row. We're going to lose 2 or 3 in a row. So we got to take advantage of the progressive as we're going up and make sure we're losing minimal on the way down. So look, right out the gate, I'm going to take care of everyone in the area. I know you guys carry Auburn as your team. I'm going to give you the winner of the Auburn-Ole Miss game, the point spread winner. The line opened up Auburn minus 12.5. They're, of course, 25-2 on the season, taking on rival 19-8 Ole Miss. Line open 12.5. It's up to 13.5. I'll let you know whether or not Auburn not only wins but covers this matchup. Absolutely free, and I'll send it to you via text message. Here's what you got to do. Text the word WIN, that's W-I-N, to the number 545454. When you do that, we're going to hit you right back. We're going to give you the winner. Again, point spread winner of the Auburn-Ole Miss game. Absolutely free, and it comes to you via text message. No strings attached. Just text the word WIN to the number 545454. Again, WIN to 545454, and let us give you that winner on the house.
Yeah, and like you were saying, JR, you've been on a hot streak here lately, so our listeners are definitely going to want to take advantage of that. And before we get to, I know you have a free pick you like to give out every week, but before we get to that, I know, this is the time of year. We're getting ready for March Madness. This is a big time of year. Yeah. Maybe a lot of people that don't traditionally wager on sports are looking at March Madness as maybe the time to start dipping their toes into that. Maybe that's just the time of year that they set aside some money for that. And I know you love to preach money management. So as we approach the NCAA tournament, everybody's getting at a fever pitch, trying to find the smart money. What advice do you have for our listeners looking at March Madness so that they don't get in too over their head early on?
You know what? It's a really good point, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And Conrad, one of the things that people make very big mistakes on is they fill out a bracket, right? Everyone loves to fill out a bracket. Even moms at home that don't do anything other than take care of their kids and their husband, they're filling out brackets. Everybody around the country, in offices, at home. I can't begin to tell you the amount of increased volume that the sports books get during the NCAA tournament. Now, after you fill out your bracket, take it, lock it up somewhere in a drawer, forget about that you ever filled it out, and when you're betting these games individually, don't bet them with the bias of trying to hit your stupid bracket. You got to do it in situations, okay? When it comes to college basketball, especially during the tournament, everything is situational. So if you're not going to sit there and watch the games and get a good feel for what's really going on, then you got to have an expert in your corner that not only can win like crazy like we do, but also can help you break up your bankroll so you're not all in on any one game or any one day for that matter. So what we like to do is take a percentage of what we're going to be going into the tournament with, and we use it for the lead up, which right now we're going to be hitting. And like you said, we're red hot right now. We always are. When we get closer and closer to the conference tournaments and into the dance, the games get better, stronger, and bigger every single year. So Let me make a suggestion. If you've never done business with an expert service before, this is the year to do it. It's not going to cost you, a lot of money to get in with us. We make ourselves worth our weight in gold. We really do. Everything you do with us after you get in, it's really going to come out of money that we're making for you. So take advantage of this big winner. Again, I'm giving you the winner of tonight's matchup between Ole Miss and Auburn against the spread for free via text message. Text the word WIN to 545454 and take advantage of that winner. And again, let's lead up into this weekend and into the conference championships, which are just a couple of weeks away, to really build up your reserves and get your bankroll in a good position so you could take advantage of the NCAA tournament. The 4 most profitable days of the year, 4 most profitable consecutive days of the year are the first and second round of the big dance, and I will be in Vegas for that Wednesday through Monday so that we could take advantage of Thursday through Sunday. So text WIN to 545454. Let me give you Ole Miss Auburn for free via text message.
Absolutely, and we can't wait to talk to you closer to March Madness time. It's going to be an exciting time of year, as always, JR. But, of course, you do have your free pick on hand. You don't want to leave our listeners empty-handed. I know, unfortunately, UTSA came up a little short for you last week, but I know you got a pick you really like tonight.
I do. In fact, I've given you guys two losers in a row. Quite, that doesn't happen often here, especially on air. But it's a good example of what I was talking about, where we do run in streaks, because we had went 7 in a row, and then we lost 2, and then we hit another 5 in a row, and we lost 2 on air. So overall, I think you're still 10 games over 500, and that UTSA should have been a winner. Came out the gate strong, lost in the end. But I got a game tonight that I think is a blowout, and it'll definitely get us back on track. I want you to take advantage of BYU tonight. They're -4, 4.5 at Arizona State. They blew this team away not more than a month and a half ago at the Rock at BYU. They beat them by 20, and they didn't even play great, BYU. Arizona State was on a 6-game losing streak before getting a big W the other day against a subpar 500 team, but they don't play well against ranked opponents. And the only ranked opponent they've beaten this year was what I call the Fugazi West Virginia Mountaineers. So, look, I don't think Arizona State's going to really play very well, especially against this BYU team that can shoot the lights out. Look for them to win this game, not only, at the end, but I expect this to be a double-digit blowout winner. Get in BYU minus the 4.5. That should be an easy W and to get us back on track for free picks on air. Guys, give us a shout. Text the word WIN to 545454 and get the Auburn-Ole Miss game for free via text message. Text WIN to 545454. Be safe, have fun, and Conrad, let's go out there and make some money.
Absolutely. Thank you, JR. We look forward to talking to you again next week. All right, that is our buddy JR. Joins us each and every week here. We're back. 2 more hours to go here on 3-Man Front.
It is 12 noon. Welcome back into Three Man Front. Great radio stations like Huntsville's The Ump. How about down in Montgomery, the capital city? Jocks 740, and here in Central Alabama, Jocks 94.5. Pat Smith along with Conrad Van Order, Molly Robinson. Landry will be back with us on Monday. Happy to be joined now on the Buyers Right Hotline. Talk a little Auburn basketball as they get ready for a big game tonight that you could hear right here on Jocks against the Ole Miss Rebels. Peter Raderkus joins us from AL.com. He is on the Auburn beat, joins us on Three Man Front. Peter, I hope you're doing well on this beautiful Wednesday.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this number one team in America. No one thought that Georgia was going to give them the battle like they did the other day. But, of course, now we saw Georgia pulling the big upset last night with Florida. Can Ole Miss make this a game tonight, in your opinion, against Auburn?
I mean, I think so. I mean, let's look at the last two games. I mean, obviously Georgia did what they did, and then Arkansas also gave Auburn a scare at home, and they, in their next game, went on and beat a really good ranked Missouri team. So, I mean, the depth of the SEC this year is just so insane that I think just about anybody can beat anybody, and anybody can play anybody close. Auburn won, Auburn won by 10 in Oxford when they played the first time, but, that was one of Auburn's best games of SEC play, and Ole Miss played really well too. So, yeah, I definitely think that Ole Miss can give Auburn a scare, especially given that, how much a win against Auburn could mean for Ole Miss.
So, Peter, looking at this game, and the last time you were out there, you mentioned it, you did get that 10-point win, but you had Sean Padula, who went off for 29 points for Auburn and gave them fits. I mean, it was a very close game there with, about 8 minutes to go in the second half of that first meeting. So what do you think Auburn needs to do differently? I know obviously playing at Neville Arena is home, but maybe to not have that scare that they had the first time against Ole Miss, and kind of like you mentioned, the Georgia and Arkansas games here recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the big thing is going to be, just defensively, which Auburn has actually been really good in their past two games. It's really been the offense, more specifically the shooting, that's kind of struggled, both against Georgia and Arkansas. And that was what was working really well for Auburn the first time around against Ole Miss. I mean, they hit 14 threes in that game, shot 14 for 28 from distance, which will win you a game just about, every time, regardless of who you're playing. So I think, defensively is going to be the big thing. But, just given how well Auburn's been playing on that end, I don't see that being as much of an issue. I'm more, my bigger wonder is, can they get back to shooting the ball well like they did earlier in conference play, which they haven't seen as much of in the last few games.
In regards to Janai Broome, he was out for a little bit because of his injury. He came back. Even when maybe he was 70, 80%, he was still putting up incredible numbers. He continues to do that on a nightly basis when Auburn plays. Do you get a sense of where he is, maybe percentage-wise, health-wise? I know Auburn would probably love to have him, give him a week off to get ready for the postseason tournaments. But where is he right now with his health, in your opinion?
I mean, he's been banged up all season. I mean, from the shoulder injury earlier on, then obviously throughout conference play, I think that ankle injury has just been a nagging thing that he's had to deal with. I think he's definitely gotten a lot better. It was easy to tell, when he had first returned, that it was definitely hampering him. And I think, just as games go on, it still can give him a little bit of discomfort, but I think he's about as good as he'll probably get this season. I mean, like you said, there's just not another opportunity to rest him for a while. And I think that's the only thing that it really takes to, get an injury like that back to 100%. But I think he's at a point now where it's not really affecting him that much anymore. It's not as pronounced, at least. So, I think it's just something that, at this point of the season, everybody just kind of has to battle through in terms of injuries and being banged up.
So, Peter, you had an article out this morning, and I know a lot of people, obviously, you're focused on the team, NCAA tournament seeding, SEC tournament seeding, that kind of stuff right now. But we do know that right now it seems like there is a two-man race for the National Player of the Year, obviously Janai Broome being one of those, and then Cooper Flagg from Duke being another. So I just wondered if you could share a little bit, because I know you put that article out, kind of comparing their two resumes as we hit the home stretch of the final season, and just how impressive Janai Broome's season really has been.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with comparing the two, to me at least, is really hard, just because they both play very different. They're two different type of players. They're used in different types of ways. And, I think the big argument, especially if you hear from Auburn fans, is that right now, at least in conference play, they're playing two very different caliber of schedules. I think Cooper Flagg is kind of undeniable. In terms of draft prospects and going to the next level, he is the best player in the country. But, I think when you look at what Johni Broome has done, consistently for Auburn against arguably the toughest league in college basketball history, and, like we mentioned a little bit ago, playing on a bum ankle for part of that stretch is extremely impressive. And just when you look at his dominance, the way he's able to impact a game from, he averages 18 points, grabs 11 rebounds a game, is very active on the offensive glass. Even though he's a post player, he's not somebody who's really going to put the ball on the floor the same way Flagg can. They can still run offense through him just because of how much attention he attracts when he has the ball and how, capable he is in scoring around the basket. So it's a hard comparison, just because of how different they are. But, right now, honestly, I think you can make a really good case for either one. But it's going to be interesting to see how much strength of schedule is factored into it.
Peter Radakus joins us from AL.com. He covers the Auburn Tigers for AL.com, joins us here on Three Man Front. Let me ask you about Denver Jones, because just watching this basketball team over the course of the last few weeks, this is an individual that has just stepped up his game big time. He's shooting 44% from the three-point arc. He's playing just incredible defense. Is this kind of the unsung hero, in your opinion, of this Auburn roster so far as we get close to the postseason?
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say that. And Bruce Pearl has kind of been making it a point whenever he gets a chance to talk to media that Denver Jones should be getting more recognition. You mentioned it. He's been, I think he's got the highest three-point shooting percentage on the team. He's been their best shooter, at least in the last half of conference play. And defensively, he's not somebody that maybe gets talked about amongst the, best defenders in the country. He doesn't really have the stats or the numbers when it comes to skills or things like that. But just look at one thing that's always interesting to look at with him is look at how much his matchups score. I think the most impressive performance he's had this season was when they went to Alabama. Mark Sears finished the game with 18 points, but I want to say he was 4 for 17 from the field or 4 for 18 from the field or something like that. He's somebody who's just capable of shutting down the opponent's best player, especially in the backcourt a lot of the time. And, he's offensively, he's a guy who averaged 21 points a game at FIU before he came to Auburn. His role has changed since he's gotten here, but he's a very capable offensive player, and we've seen it in certain games. So yeah, no, he's definitely kind of an unsung hero of this group, I would say.
So, Peter, now that we're almost through the regular season and we have a pretty good idea of some of these younger players and how the season's played out for them, Tahad Pettiford is a player who has come through in big moments for Auburn all season long. Didn't have his best showing. He was over from the floor against Georgia, but for a true freshman to have the impact that he has and to come in and let's be honest, essentially take over Aiden Holloway's role from last year, just how impressed have you been with Tahad Pettiford coming in as a true freshman and a guy that continues to seem like he is getting better before our very eyes over the course of the season?
Yeah, he's been really impressive. And I think the most impressive thing that you kind of alluded to is how good he's been, against the best teams Auburn has played in the biggest moments. I think about in the Alabama game, Alabama had gone on a run. I want to say this is when they had tied the game, midway through the second half. Pettiford comes right down the floor in transition, knocks down a three, gives Auburn the lead back. And, from there, Auburn kind of had control the rest of the game. And he's done that time and time again. I think the big coming out party for him was game 2 of the season when they had to play Houston in Houston. He goes off, has 21 points against what's one of, if not the toughest defense in all college basketball. So he's been extremely impressive. He's still, even for a guy that's coming off the bench, he's been one of, the most important players on this team and maybe their most capable, perimeter scorer.
Peter, I'm not trying to set you up for an answer that might get you in trouble with a certain fan base, but I am curious because Auburn, hands down, is the best team in the country. They're the best team in the Southeastern Conference. This is a very tough conference this year. If it's not Auburn, who would you put in the same category, maybe 2, 3, 4, in regards to teams that could make a run to the Final Four from this conference?
That's a good question. To me, that top group, there's a few. The ones that jump out to me, even though they lost last night, I'm still very high on Florida, just the way that team is made up. Duke, obviously, I think is right there with Auburn as the best team in the country. I think you can make the argument for them as well. And then another one, I mean, is Houston, just with how tough they are defensively. A little bit undersized, but very tough defensively. And Alabama's right over in there too. My worry with Alabama, they've shown, on nights last night that they, when they're clicking, I mean, they can beat just about anybody. I mean, they're an absolute force to be reckoned with offensively on the right night. But, I do worry about them defensively, on certain nights. And, we saw that in some of the losses, I mean, particularly against Missouri. So I would say, Auburn, Duke, Florida, Houston, and then kind of right there on that outside looking in, I'd put Alabama.
So looking ahead past this Ole Miss game that you have coming up tonight, you got 3 games left in the regular season. Auburn's going on the road to Kentucky this weekend. Then midweek, they'll be going to College Station to play A&M, and then, of course, wrapping up the regular season in the second IBOB against Alabama back in Neville. So between those 3 games, Peter, that you have coming up to finish the regular season, which one of those do you view as the most difficult? Do you think it is an Alabama team looking for revenge for their loss a couple of weeks ago, or is it one of those 2 road trips against 2 top 25 teams?
Both of those 2 road trips really worry me, especially looking at Kentucky this weekend. I mean, it's a team that's been really good but hasn't been healthy, for most of SEC play. And it's looking like they very well could get both Butler and Jackson Robinson back, for that game this weekend. And going to Rupp is never an easy task. Auburn hasn't won there, I believe, since 1998, I want to say, or, however long it's been. It's been a really long time. And, and that game could be the game where Auburn clinches the SEC. So that's one that I'm worried about. And then Texas A&M, just a team that really nobody wants to play against. I mean, they're extremely tough, best team in the country on the offensive glass, really good defensively. So those 2 games, especially away from home, especially this late in the season, worry me a little bit. But I think it'll also depend on, whether or not Auburn clinches Saturday or before then. And then I think that could also affect just kind of how we look at these games as well.
So, Peter, finally, before the season ends, in regards to Auburn holding on to that number 1, is there a number in your head that if they were to drop 2 or 3 games, which is unfathomable to think about, but this is college basketball and anything is possible, is there a number that you think they would be in jeopardy of not being a number 1 seed in regards to a number of losses down the stretch?
To me, it'd be very hard to see them not be a number 1 seed. It would really take a lot. I think, if they lose to Texas A&M, Kentucky, or Alabama, maybe even all 3 of those games, I think they're probably still in really good shape. I think if they just lose every game the rest of the season, maybe it's a little bit dicey, but like you said, that just doesn't even seem fathomable. I mean, anything's possible. You don't want to rule anything out, but I think at this point, Auburn can feel pretty comfortable about having a number 1 seed. I think right now the bigger focus is finishing strong and wrapping up the number 1 overall seed, which I think even that they're probably only at 2 or 3 more wins away from.
All right, before we let you run, Peter, a question that we've talked about here on the show and we've asked our listeners here over the last couple of weeks, when you're projecting ahead to the NCAA tournament, for you right now, with what you've seen from this Auburn team, they're clearly the number 1 team in the country right now. I know in a lot of people's eyes, the expectation is going to be national championship or bust. But for you, what is the expectation in terms of when you look back on this season and you can go, that was a good season? Does Auburn have to get to an Elite 8? Do they have to get to a Final Four? Or do you think they have to at least make it to a national championship to at least consider this year a success just based on how fantastic they've looked in the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it depends. Are you looking through the prism of going into this season, or are we kind of looking through it as the expectation now? I think going into this season, I mean, compared to now, it's different. I think a lot of people expected them to be really good going into the season, but I don't know how many people expected them to be this good and have been the number 1 team in the country for the last 7 weeks. I think at this point, you have to make a deep run. I mean, for it to be considered a success. I mean, right now, when you're the number 1 team in the country, I think everybody hopes, to go all the way to win a championship. That's also really, really hard to do in college basketball. But, I think it's going to depend on, just how far they go and how it looks. I mean, especially coming off the disappointment of last year, I don't think, I don't see them losing in the first round or really even on the first weekend this year. But, I think get to the second weekend, see what the matchups are like. And if there's a strong path, a good path for you to get to the Final Four or further, I think that would be looked at as a success. But, it's really hard to say what would be considered a disappointment. I think it's just kind of going to depend on who they match up against the tournament and, who a win or loss would come against.
That is Peter Raderkus, joins us here on Three Man Front, covers the Auburn beat for AL.com. Peter, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the game tonight, and I'm sure we will catch up with you soon.
Yeah, appreciate y'all for having me.
Thank you, Peter. That is Peter Raderkus joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner.
Well, on Monday afternoon, Wallace State men's basketball and women's basketball both defeated Coastal Alabama to take their records to 10-3 in conference play. They will both close out the regular season with matchups against Lawson State tomorrow. If you're interested in more information on Wallace-Hansville Lions, go to athletics.wallacestate.edu.
Courtesy GMC, they bring you the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. We'll read your text. We'll also take your phone calls at 205-834-9450 and 1-800-239-WJOX. Welcome back. It's the Wednesday edition of Three Man Front. Pat, Conrad, Molly Lange will be back with us on Monday. Appreciate Peter Raderkus joining us, talking Auburn basketball tonight. You can hear the game right here on Jocks 94.5. Pregame show begins at 5:30. Tip-off is at 6. Well, there is another gambling scandal potentially brewing, this time sort of in our neck of the woods. 4 New Orleans players who have been suspended since late January are under investigation for possible NCAA violations related to sports gambling. According to multiple reports, the university's only public statement about the matter has described the reasons for the suspensions as an unspecified violation of team rules. James White, Josh Short, Day Hunter, and Jamon Vincent have not played since the Privateers lost to Incarnate Word on January the 27th. The reasons for their suspensions were first reported in a social media post by college basketball analyst Jeff Goodman. New Orleans is 4-25 on the season, 2-16 in the Southland. And we played you the story from Monday in which Fresno State, over the weekend, they have got 3 players currently suspended due to the fact that they're investigating possible gambling link. Now, New Orleans has lost all 8 games it has played since the suspensions and is scheduled to play next at UT Rio Grande Valley on Saturday.
Well, to be fair, they weren't making that big of a difference. They were 4-17 before the suspension.
That is correct. The revelations at New Orleans comes days after the Fresno State suspension, 2 of its top players on its men's basketball program. Fresno State said in a statement that Jalen Weaver and Zayon Collins are being withheld from competition as the university reviews an eligibility matter. So Fresno State and now New Orleans. And you see the theme that you've got 2 teams that they're struggling. And now you've got players suspended potentially, perhaps, at least in the Fresno State situation. I don't know for sure with New Orleans, but at least the accusations at Fresno State is absolutely point shaving and stat shaving.
Yes. That is the major concern. If you want some good news, though, Pat, New Orleans is facing UT Rio Grande Valley on Saturday if you want to load up.
Ooh.
I know, but what is the point spread? Or is it off the board?
It probably is off the board at this point. It's not good.
I mean, last night, the point spread for the Duke-Miami game, like before it started, I think was 22 or 23 points for Duke.
And they won by what, 37?
Yeah.
Cool.
The first half spread was 14.
Rough time for the Hurricanes.
And now the Hurricanes are supposedly going to hire somebody off of Duke's staff to be their head coach.
There was no line on ESPN, but they give them an 87.5% chance to win. So
Rio Grande Valley?
Yes, no, not New Orleans.
I was about to say, wow.
No.
So, man, how bad is this other team?
That would be a story in itself. Wow. That's something else. Joe Lunardi has updated this morning. Brand new information from Joe Lunardi, the ESPN registered bracketologist. So tonight he says that Vandy and Texas A&M, Vandy can all but clinch an NCAA tournament bid with a road victory. Meanwhile, Kentucky at Oklahoma, he says Sooners are in a position to exhale with another big home win. So I assume that means that you beat Kentucky.
You're good.
You stand a good shot. Meanwhile, Texas at Arkansas, he says loser will be hanging on by a thread by the end of the night.
Yep. Sounds right.
He currently has Auburn as the number 1 overall seed, Duke 2, Alabama 3, Houston 4, Tennessee 5, Florida 6, Michigan State 7, Texas A&M holding on that 2 line, coming in at number 8. You got Kentucky on the 3 line, and then I'm looking to see if he's got Missouri as a 5 seed.
Yep.
Last 4 buys, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, and Molly, your Nebraska would get a bye.
We'll take it.
The last 4 in, Texas, Arkansas from the SEC. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Georgia's win over Florida last night basically moved them from the next 4 out into the first 4 out. He's got North Carolina, Indiana, Georgia, and SMU. Those are the 4 teams in that order that are the first 4 teams that would not make the tournament.
And again, I know the committee's going to work this out, but if you look at Georgia, just looking at the net rankings right now, Indiana is 56th, North Carolina is 44, and Georgia is 36th. And as I mentioned earlier, they have 3 quad 1 wins while North Carolina only has 1. So you would hope that would fare well for you when the committee is making their final decisions. But if you're Georgia, you control your own destiny, right? Just keep winning basketball games and you're going to be fine. And I will say for Oklahoma, if they get that win tonight over Kentucky, that would be huge. They would be 5-10 in the SEC. And according to what Lenardi's saying there, essentially you're good at that point. So Oklahoma could make the NCAA tournament potentially at 5-13 in conference play.
And Jerry Palm joined the show last Friday, and he was talking about how historically, if a team is worse than 4 games under 500 in conference play, you don't make it to the tournament.
No.
I think you've got to throw out conventional wisdom out the door this year based on the SEC and the strength, right?
I would think so. Absolutely. I mean, you just look at we've talked about the ACC a lot this year and how down they've been. And again, I just, when you look at North Carolina, are you going to give them credit for having a worse resume and a worse conference than Georgia, who has a better resume and a better conference? Hopefully not. We'll see how that all plays out on Selection Sunday. But yeah, it's a strange year in the SEC.
Well, for instance, let's just take North Carolina. They're 1-10 in quad 1 games, right?
Yep.
1-10. But according to Joe Lenardi, North Carolina is the first team out of making the NCAA tournament. It goes to what you were just talking about, Georgia. So Georgia finds themselves, according to Lenardi, 2 spots behind North Carolina.
Doesn't make sense.
So North Carolina plays in a terrible league. Meanwhile, Georgia just beat what a lot of people going into last night's game said that Florida was the sleeper team to potentially win the national championship, and they still may.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of data points right now, looking at the NCAA tournament, Lenardi is basically saying that North Carolina has a better shot of getting in than the University of Georgia, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I mean the same thing, to be fair for Indiana, okay, they're a little further down on the net rankings. They're 56, but they have 4 quad 1 wins. And the thing with Georgia and Indiana, they have 0 losses in quad 2, 3, and 4. They are undefeated in those areas, whereas North Carolina, they have a quad 3 loss on the season. So again, outside of the brand name, I don't understand where that's coming from, but there's still games to sort all that stuff out. But yeah, I mean, I would think that Georgia and Indiana would be ahead of North Carolina right now, but not according to Joe Lenardi.
Multi-bid conferences, according to Joe Lenardi, SEC would have 13 teams, Georgia knocking on the door to be the 14th team. Big 10 would come in with 10, Big 12 with 8, the ACC, Big East, 4 and 4 apiece, Mountain West 3, and the West Coast Conference with 2, which would mean that the American Athletic Conference, home of the UAB Blazers, that UAB would most likely have to be a bid stealer and win the conference tournament.
Well, maybe Memphis will be nice. Obviously, you want to beat a team with their best competition, and Saturday is going to be a great atmosphere, I'd imagine, at Bartow when they do welcome in the Memphis Tigers. But Memphis, their resume's fine. They're in the top 25. They're going to get in the tournament. Let UAB come and play in the tournament too.
Meanwhile, the SEC in the big dance, the SEC has had 43 NCAA tournament selections over the last 6 tournaments. So do the math, Conrad. 43 divided by 6 is what?
43 divided by 6, like 7 point something.
Okay, so they're averaging 7 teams per year over the last 6 seasons making the NCAA tournament. And now we're talking about almost double that.
I was about to say, you might double that in 1 year.
You're doubling your average over the last 6 seasons to make the NCAA basketball tournament.
That's not bad.
It's crazy. A record-tying 10 SEC teams received postseason bids in 2023 and 2024. The SEC's 8 NCAA tournament selections in both 23 and 24 tied its previous best set back in 2018. I believe that is going to be shattered this year.
Safe to say.
Additionally, 2 SEC teams competed in the NIT each year. So whoever doesn't make the big
LSU
dance.
and South Carolina. And maybe Georgia.
Well, I don't know if South Carolina will, but never know about LSU.
Hey, the crazy thing, though, is, somebody brought it up. I think it was on Morning Jocks this morning. They were asking about, Clemson is one of those teams that maybe, again, is flying under the radar a little bit. Obviously, they played in the Elite 8 against Alabama last year.
They beat Alabama.
Keep
this
in
year,
mind.
Right?
No, not this year.
No, not that's right. They did not.
But you know who did beat Clemson this year? South Carolina.
Isn't that crazy?
Clemson's 22-5. They're number 13, I believe, right now in the AP. South Carolina beat them in non-conference.
That is unbelievable. Also, 9 different SEC teams have advanced to the Sweet 16 in the last 7 NCAA tournaments. 9 different SEC teams. Pretty impressive.
Very good.
So, more three-man front. We open up the phone lines at 1-800-239-WJOX. We'll read your text next on the Courtesy GMC text line. One 1-800-239-WJOX, the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. We'll get to your text momentarily. Jonathan Nelson, the general manager of the Birmingham Barons, will join us in about 10 minutes from now. You know, the state of Louisiana will become the latest state to introduce a bill exempting NIL money from state income tax. The Baton Rouge Advocate reported that late yesterday afternoon. Its sponsor said the following of the bill: "We're not going to let them outcompete us." End of quote.
Does this apply to the New Orleans basketball players?
Not sure. Georgia was the first one in the Southeast. Alabama followed. And now the state of Louisiana. So
no surprise there.
No, none whatsoever. The NFL Combine's been going on up in Indianapolis, Indiana. There's been a little bit of news coming out back and forth about things. And one of those that came out at the beginning of the week was that there was an unnamed franchise that wanted to get rid of the tush push.
Mm-hmm.
And then it later came out that it was the Green Bay Packers. Well, Nick Sirianni, the head coach, the Super Bowl winning head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, he had a thought or two on that being banned in the NFL.
I almost feel a little insulted because we worked so hard at that play. The amount of things that we've looked into how to coach that play, the fundamentals, is always, there's 1,000 plays out there, but it comes down to how you teach the fundamentals and then how the players go through and do with the fundamentals. It's a skill that our team has because of the players that we have, the way the coaches coach it. There's just so much time put into it. The fact that it's a successful play for the Eagles and people want to take that away, I think is a little unfair.
So what do you think? I know we talked about it on Pat Ponders and different variations over the last couple of weeks. Is it a football move? Is it something that needs to be banned? Is it just the fact that teams need to do a better job playing defense on it?
I guess I have the viewpoint of, all right, if you're an opposing team, again, it's similar to, we talk about this with players, right? Like if you're a Warriors fan, you have Draymond Green on your team, you're probably a big fan of him. Everyone else hates him, right? If you're an Eagles fan, you love the tush push. Every other organization, every other fan base probably hates it. I guess I just look at it like, what about it is illegal in a rule book standpoint because there's nothing. And I understand that, they revised the rule book and things like that, but I guess I just look at it like if you can't beat them, everyone wants to try to stop it when in reality, it's like I said yesterday, why are more teams not trying to do it themselves? I understand not everybody has the offensive line they do. Not everybody has a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, but can you not practice it and find a way that it works for you? And then again, defensively, I get it's a difficult situation to be in, but you kind of know it's coming at this point. You can't tell me there's not a way to figure out how to defend that play. They figured it out, right? They figured out something that works for them. And if you can't stop it, then I feel like that's kind of on you at times.
I view this as no different than when back in the modern age of football, when the forward pass.
Adapt. You
adapt and you try to figure it out. I'll never forget when Steve Spurrier came into the SEC and everybody was like all the old school guys, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust running the football. Everybody was all concerned about that. And then all of a sudden, Terry Bowden brought 5 wideouts to Auburn, and it was revolutionary. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Mike Leach and what they tried to do at Kentucky. The fun and gun and everything else happening. You just have to adapt to it. Listen, when Gus Malzahn came in the Southeastern Conference, what he was doing at Auburn was revolutionary. And then guess what happened? People caught up. Hugh Freeze, what he was doing at Ole Miss was revolutionary. When was the last time Hugh Freeze was competing for a championship?
It's a good point.
People adapt. And so it might take a little bit longer in the NFL, or maybe just got a lot of franchises are just lazy.
It's also just funny that, as you talk about that and advancements in the sport, I look at the tush pushes, that's more of an old school, right? Just physical, our guys are tougher than your guys type of play. And now everyone's complaining about it like, oh, well, that's not fair. It's okay. Well, there's a lot of people complaining about, well, it's too quarterback reliant. The passing attack has become too prevalent in professional football. And then you have the Eagles going back to the old ground and pound days of just gritting it out for a yard or two. And people don't like that anymore. So I understand the frustrations with it. But again, you've had years of film, you've had years of practice and off seasons and OTAs to figure out a way to stop this play. And, if you can't beat it, stop it. But I don't know. The Eagles have it figured out. Good for them.
I do not think it's going to be banned.
I hope not.
I don't see it.
It's kind of funny how upset. Like, who didn't love? I understand it's probably frustrating if you're a Commanders fan, but having them jump off sides 6 times in a row in the playoff game, I think that's great entertainment. But I'm also not a Commanders fan. So.
Well, unless you can provide some type of data that says the health of the football players, like there's been multiple people injured and the head trauma involved, or whatever the case may be. But outside of that, it's just.
Well, and Jason Kelsey's retired now. If there's somebody that took the brunt of the tush push, it's him, right? He's the guy that was leading the charge for years.
Question.
Don't see him complaining about how bad it was for his health, or at least compared to the normal rigors of playing professional football. So,
I have been telling you for some time about Courtesy GMC and Trustful. You need to get out and see the incredible inventory selection that they have. And nobody's going to beat Courtesy GMC's prices. I mean, nobody. Let me give you an example. The Sierra AT4X that I have been telling you about. Other dealerships do not have the inventory as deep as Courtesy GMC or the outstanding pricing on the AT4X. $11,000 off MSRP. I need you to go to courtesybirmingham.com, type in the AT4X, and then surf around. Take a look at other dealerships around Alabama. Go to Florida. Go to Georgia. You're not going to find anybody that's going to have a better price or that can beat the price at Courtesy GMC when it comes on this incredible AT4X, $11,000 off MSRP, multiple to choose from right now. How about the SLT Premium Plus package on trucks? Those are almost gone because it was $13,000 off MSRP. Other dealerships are still trying to get rid of their 2024 models. Courtesy has the 2025s at 2024 pricing with incredible deals. How about the 2025 Sierra Denali, up to $13,000 off with those 22-inch wheels? You get the idea. Incredible savings right now awaits you. Courtesy GMC and Trustful, right off of I-459 exit 32. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com. We will get to your text as promised, and also Jonathan Nelson will join us next on Three Man Front. The crack of the bat. It is here. Spring training going on. We got the Yankees and Cardinals scoreless in St. Petersburg right now.
Oh, Pat. Pat.
Oh, let me guess. The Yankees are now like killing the Cardinals?
It's 4-0.
Oh, there you go.
In the bottom of the third, 1 out.
Well, that's great. Spoke too soon. I was hoping for a 0-0 tie.
Sorry. Goldschmidt with an RBI.
Oh, imagine that against his former team.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's talk a little baseball. The general manager, good friend of the program, Jonathan Nelson, we call him Nelly here on the program, joins us on Three Man Front. Happy New Year, my friend. Hope you're doing well.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Pat, Conrad, Molly, everybody. Man, great to be with you. And obviously, you talk about spring training games and Cardinals and the Yanks. And, of course, you look out your window and you see the blue skies and the warmer temps. Obviously, we're all just really excited about, another baseball season. And baseball's here. I mean, shoot, this is the third week of college baseball. So they're well into it at this point. And obviously high school baseball, and then now with the pros, going in Arizona and Florida, just an exciting time of the year. And as we start to put a bow on basketball in a few weeks and turn the page to baseball, just really look forward to another season here at Regions Field.
Before we get into the actual Barons season coming up, you've got an exciting event coming up this weekend, and it's a very important event, and it's the job fair that you guys will have down at Regions Field.
Yeah, I mean, and there's several rite of passages, as we lead up to the baseball season and certainly start to signal that, it's getting here in rapid fashion. And it's our job fair, which we satisfy a number of our, game day seasonal positions. And it's always been well received and always get a really good crowd here. And we always need a lot of help. We're looking for folks that, want to be part of the Barons family for a season. And there's something magical about working for, 6 months, on and off at a ballpark and being part of the routine and part of seeing the action too, and interacting with so many great folks that come out during the course of the season. So it's a fun time. Yes, it signals the Barron season is getting close. I mean, heck, the team shows up in less than a month. Yet at the same time, it's just part of our rite of passage, and we satisfy a number of our needs leading up to the season. So it's a great time, and hopefully, it'll be from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 this Saturday here at Regions Field. So it'll be in our club lounge. So hopefully folks can come out and apply and see what role might fit them.
So, Jonathan, I know looking past that, you do have opening day coming up on March 31st, if I'm correct, for the Birmingham Barons. We're really excited about another great season here in Birmingham. But I think between now and then, you might have some other events going on up there at the ballpark, maybe even an opportunity for some local people to go and support the UAB Blazers, if I'm not mistaken, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to the job fair, and the team actually shows up on March 31st, whereas our opening day will be on April 4th.
Okay.
So it's the full week of all those things. Yet at the same time, yeah, I mean, our first UAB game will be next Tuesday, March 4th at 6 o'clock here at Regions Field. They're going to be hosting Auburn. They always have a very healthy and a great attendance for that. And then the immediate following Tuesday after that, March 11th, they're going to be hosting, UAB will be hosting Alabama and their Red Hot Bats and pitching here as well after that unique weekend in Jacksonville this past weekend.
All right, I have to ask you about the ABS system that they're using there in spring training. And I understand AAA is going to be using it. Does that filter down to you guys at AA? What is the status of the ABS challenging system for the batters and pitchers?
Yeah, it's not going to technically filter down to us this season. I know that the White Sox are installing a number of equipment items here that potentially be that way for this season and for future seasons as well. I think it's great. I think that, I think some of the things that Major League Baseball has tried here in the minor leagues, and obviously many of them have, gone up to the big leagues as well, have worked out really well. And I think fans appreciate that commitment to continuing to enhance the quality of the play to ensure that the calls are made right, that the rhythm of the game continues at a really, really healthy pace that makes it more enjoyable for fans. And yet not compromising the sanctity of what the game is and all the traditions that go into it. So, I don't know in due time when it will filter down here. I do believe that in due time that it will, be at every level in professional baseball.
So, Jonathan, I did want to ask you about the big ball club here for a second. The Chicago White Sox, I know last year, y'all had a great season with the Barons, and part of that success was you got to see a lot of guys rise up through the ranks, and a lot of guys got to contribute with the big league club last year. I know Drew Thorpe was a great pitcher for the Barons at the beginning part of last year, somebody I've watched a lot coming up through the Yankee system before finding his way here to Birmingham. But just what should we expect from the White Sox this year in the American League Central, a division that, at least for my record, is fairly winnable?
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's only one way for the White Sox to go is up. At least that's the plan after a unique year last year. But, yeah, I mean, we benefited from so many great trades, acquisitions, draft, you name it, last year. We had a great staff. You know, Sergio Santos, our manager, has now been promoted to AAA in Charlotte. We're getting a new manager this year and mostly a new coaching staff as well. But once again, in 2025, we're going to benefit from a lot of that White Sox rebuild. You know, those trades, you know, the one with the Red Sox this past off season. I would imagine that while Montgomery missed the first round draft pick by the Red Sox last year, where he missed the entire season last year due to an injury at Texas A&M, I do believe in due time he'll be rushed and hopefully he'll be able to get here at some point midway, if not later in the season. But once again, you know, we're going to have some of the best prospects. Right now, I fully anticipate, you know, the number one left-handed pitching prospect in all of minor league baseball is Noah Schultz. He pitched most of the season with us last year. I fully anticipate him starting out once again with us in 2025.
Oh, wow.
Hagen Smith, you know, the number one pick by the White Sox last year out of the University of Arkansas, you know, great left-handed pitcher who's the number 2 rated left-handed pitching prospect in minor league baseball. You know, I would imagine that, you know, he made his way through different A levels last year. He'll be a AA this year. So I fully anticipate that we're not going to lose too much of a step when it comes to quality play on the field, yet entertaining the fans as well. So hopefully another, you know, I'm not going to be so bold as to think that we're going to win back-to-back Southern League championships, yet at the same time, you know, this is spring training and optimism is in surplus at this point. But I feel like we're going to have a really good team this year.
Speaking of that, Landrum is off this week, but he left me a note, and I'm gonna read this to you, Jonathan. It says, "Please ask Jonathan where our rings are."
You know, I thought they were delivered by now. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you know, the post. I know that things have slowed down with the postal service, but not that much. But leave it to Landrum to continue to ask the question, and I'm sure it won't be the last time this 2025.
Well, he just moved on. He wanted to be like the lifetime bat boy for the Barons, and so now he is going to continuously berate you about the championship rings that he and I should have because we were part of the team, Jonathan. I mean, we brought.
I'm confident that we'll be able to satisfy that in some form or fashion as we lead up to the season. There's no doubt. But yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, just due to the timeline and all that other stuff, unfortunately, we didn't get to order them until right before Christmas. So there's a little bit of that into it as well.
Jonathan, you can go down to Walgreens or whatever, some pharmacy, ring pops. They're like $1 a piece. Bring a pair up here for Pat and Landrum.
That would be fine. We want to be recognized. I mean, Jonathan came into the press box that night as Landrum and I were doing the game, and he was making fun of us because we're going to have to be there till 1 o'clock in the morning because it was the longest game in the history of Birmingham Barons baseball. So
it was, and the day before was like the shortest. Yeah, I mean that's just the way it balances out in sports and especially in baseball.
Yeah, very typical. All right, let's remind everybody, big event coming up at 9:30 this Saturday at Regions Field.
Yeah, absolutely. A job fair. We're going to satisfy all of our seasonal positions. And of course, right now, we're just continuing to prepare for the season. I think that we're continuing to prepare and create a great promotional schedule. We're selling season tickets, group packages, advertising packages. So if anybody wants to be a part of Barons baseball, whether it be working in a seasonal position or just come out and enjoy or be a part of it as a sponsor or whatever it is, we're buttoning up all those details right now and just getting ready for opening day. And when the team shows up on March 31st and we chalk the lines and play ball on April 4th, we're going to be ready. And it's just going to be another, season of continuing the tradition of Barons baseball here in Birmingham.
Southern League champion, Birmingham Barons. Southern League champion general manager, Jonathan Nelson. That's on his business card now. Southern League champion.
That's right.
It should be.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. All right, Jonathan, always great catching up, and we will talk at you soon.
Look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nelly. That's Jonathan Nelson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline for all your insurance, financial, and HR needs. It's Buyers Right Insurance, a Higginbotham partner. Do you think Landrum's note was straight and to the point?
It It was straight and to the point. Do you think you get a Stallions ring or a Barons ring first? Because I know that y'all have been jockeying for both
I don't
of
like the
those.
fact that we've been shortchanged. I mean, we have been part of the Stallions in regards to helping Magoo out. We
See,
changed
you were a
his whole
scouting
season.
department for them. You were on the broadcast crew for the Barons, so different roles.
It was a very big game that Landrum and I did. It was the Smokies game.
It was an extra innings game.
Yeah, very much so.
Wasn't it the day after our kickoff party?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, Molly.
It was.
It was a very emotional week.
It was big week for
Being
us.
able to hang out with Don and everybody, a part of the Jocks kickoff party. And then all of a sudden have to turn around. That was a quick turnaround.
It was, yeah.
And then spend 12 and a half hours at the ballpark calling a baseball game.
Pretty much.
After doing this show for 4 hours. It was a long day.
We all feel so sorry for you. A lot of sympathy here.
We have another hour to go.
We do. One whole
Surprised at how poorly the first three have gone that management had to come in here and turn the Best of Paul Feinbaum show on.
Well, I haven't spread any fake news today, so we're doing better than.
Not yet. There's still an hour left.
That's right, Molly.
Yeah, you caught a lot of heck at Social Taco off the air yesterday. They're saying Pat's usually the one that gets himself in trouble, but Conrad was taking that role pretty well yesterday.
Well, Landrum took a week off. You needed a week off from something as well, so
yeah, that's
just
true.
trying to help you out.
More three-man front on this gorgeous Wednesday. Thanks for making us a part of your day. This is Jocks 94.5. It is the fourth hour of three-man front. Thanks for making us a part of your Wednesday. Pat, Conrad, Molly with you until 2 o'clock. We'll take you up to the Paul Feinbaum Show. A lot of basketball talk today. Alabama coming off an impressive win last night against number 24 Mississippi State. Tonight, The number one team in America, the Auburn Tigers, will be facing off against the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss solidly in the tournament field for the NCAA tournament, but needless to say, a win against the number one team in America there at Neville Arena, something that not a lot of teams have been able to do over the last 4 years. If you can do that, that would extremely solidify your position and probably maybe put you on another line in regards to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like with Florida, right? I mean, that would be tied with what Florida did as the best win of any team in college basketball this year. So, yeah, that would certainly go a long way for Hotty Toddy.
Absolutely. And you can hear the game right here on Jocks 94.5 beginning at 5:30. That is the pregame show. And then, of course, tip-off is at 6 o'clock. UAB and Samford, they will play tomorrow night. So we'll talk a lot about their games coming up tomorrow.
This is nice. We got Alabama on Tuesday, Auburn Wednesday, UAB and Samford on Thursday.
That's the way it should be each and every week during the college basketball.
Yes.
I'm a fan.
Great week. I appreciate that.
It is. We were just talking to Jonathan Nelson, the general manager of the Birmingham Barons. And if you have not been able to catch what's going on in spring training baseball, you are missing it. And we talked about it about a week ago, but they have this ABS system. That is the automated balls and strikes system, to where if a batter, a catcher, or a pitcher believes that the umpire has made an incorrect call, that if you're a batter, you tap your helmet. And then instantaneously, they call time. And it's automated, which means it's a computer system. It's like the K-zone you see when you're watching a game. And then it automatically rings into the IFB of the umpire. And then he announces to the crowd, challenge is correct or challenge was incorrect. It's a ball strike, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to take you to Arizona, where the San Diego Padres were playing yesterday, and take a listen to what happened.
Good breaking ball, just misses. Brett Sullivan going to challenge.
Let's try that again, Molly. Computer loves to cooperate with us.
It does. We're getting there.
She's still trying to get it to cooperate with us.
It's worth the wait, though.
It is. It's pretty funny. It's very funny. All right, let's try this again. Here we go. Yesterday, spring training in the wonderful Cactus League.
Good breaking ball, just misses. Brett Sullivan going to challenge.
Ball call.
Brett has been expert at the ABS system. Ooh.
The call is surprisingly correct. 3.
Oh, we told you. Mike Malinsky, one of our favorites.
Oh, man.
So Mike Malinsky, he was the home plate umpire. And we're going to play it again for you. So kind of put in context. So it's challenged. And so you're going to hear the home plate umpire come over the PA system and say it's being challenged. And then you will hear his response once he gets the automatic signal in his IFB that the call was correct.
Good breaking ball, just misses. Brett Sullivan going to challenge.
Ball call.
Brett has been expert at the ABS system. Ooh.
The call is surprisingly correct. 3.
So the umpire having some fun.
You. Mike Malinsky, one of our favorites.
Saying the call was surprisingly correct.
I love
kind of
it.
taking a shot at himself.
I was about
That's
to say,
great.
Play into it. Yeah, hopefully the pitcher was able to laugh at that. It's like, oh, okay, you know what, you were right, but hey, if we get more of that, I'm all for that.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're only going to have that in spring training at the Major League Baseball level. Now, AAA, they will do it all the time, and the general feeling is next year in Major League Baseball, you will get that challenge system.
Yes, and as we saw yesterday, sometimes if your name's Max Scherzer, maybe your eye's not as good as you think it is on some of these challenges.
If you did not see Max Scherzer, it was against the Cardinals. It was a breaking ball.
I mean, it was what, 3-4 inches below the zone?
Oh, it was not even close. And he immediately, as soon as the umpire called it a ball, he tapped his head. And then when K-Zone looked at it, and you're like going,
what?
What in the world, Max Scherzer? What were you doing? It was crazy.
I get a feel for it.
Yeah, but hey, it's in spring training, so why not use it and go for it? You know?
Absolutely.
Especially if you're one of these star pitchers that's going to pitch for an inning, and just go ahead and use them.
Absolutely.
Like using them on back-to-back pitches.
Yeah. And I like the fact that, I mean, that wasn't an edited clip right there. I mean, that's real time. I mean, it took what, 5-10 seconds?
It's instantaneous
to get it done.
Well,
like,
I mean, what's going to happen for all those future umpires out there, especially wanting to get into the Major League Baseball system, is that within the next 10 or 15 years, the point will be, why do you need an umpire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's the concern for them. And again, that's why I've always said, like, I kind of like the human element of it. Granted, it can get out of hand sometimes, but if that does eventually go away, I will miss that part of the game when you have a good umpire, at least.
Yep. So I saw this clip, and I wish Landrum were here, because Landrum does a pretty good Bill Belichick imitation.
He does.
So Bill Belichick was having an event in which it was kind of a Q&A, and watching him sit back and answer questions about the state of the North Carolina program. And
was Jordan there with him?
No, Jordan was not there.
Oh, man.
But he was asked to pretty much give an assessment of his early time in Chapel Hill and what he likes and what he has seen so far with his football program.
Yeah, it's been great. The reception's been great from all levels. The student body at a couple of basketball games and those type of things. They seem pretty happy about the pizza, so that was good. The players have been great. They're working extremely hard and trying to get better and do the things we're asking them to do. Lee Roberts and the administration have been great in terms of the transition and the alumni from the Rams Club to many of the football alumni, Taylor and Peppers and Harris Barton, Jeff Saturday, and can go on and on, have been great as well.
There you go.
Sounds very enthusiastic.
Well, especially about the pizzas. Now, it would have been really cool if he said, hey, students seem to be fired up about my girlfriend.
There it is.
I mean, let's just be honest.
I'm glad to know there's been a warm welcome for Bill there. And because I shared this with you earlier for North Carolina, we were talking about Oklahoma hiring Jim Nagy to be their new GM. Came out this morning, they're paying Michael Lombardi $1.5 million to be the general manager there at Chapel Hill. So
wow,
talk about expecting some success pretty early on, I would say.
Well, they got to hurry. I mean, Bill Belichick's not getting any younger.
I mean, okay, realistically, even if, let's say that, he has a great year this year, it's like, man, okay, Bill is going to work in college football. Realistically, 5 years from now, do you think there's any chance that he's still at North Carolina? He would be in his late 70s.
What, 77, 78?
70, yep.
Something like that. It just depends. To me, it depends on how the next couple of years go. I mean, if he gets this thing turning in the right direction, then I could see him going 5 years.
I just feel like that's kind of the max.
Because there's not an NFL team that's going to give him another shot. I would think.
Apparently not. For whatever reason. Wouldn't that be something he goes and, maybe let's say, North Carolina, they go 8 or 9 wins this year, something like good season. And then he just goes right back to the NFL. Because, okay, yeah, but we'll give you another chance now. Somebody will get desperate.
Yeah.
The Cowboys will have to fire their hand-me-down coach that they hired.
Yeah. Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer used to be a University of Florida assistant coach. And you saw who is coming to Gainesville now.
That's right, Junior. Steve Spurrier Jr.
Steve Jr.
Coming over from
just
Tulsa?
like his dad. Oh my gosh. If you have not seen pictures of Steve Spurrier Jr.
Spitting image.
It is uncanny.
Yeah, hopefully they can have similar success with him on the staff there.
Well,
Spent some time at Mississippi State a couple years ago.
There was a midweek American Conference game with Tulsa, and that's where Steve Spurrier Jr. was last year.
Mm-hmm.
He was on staff. And so right in the middle of the game, you had just a weird look. You had Steve Spurrier Sr. in a box doing a mid-game interview with the sideline reporter of ESPN, and he's wearing Tulsa gear. Now, you want to talk about...
That's something.
I mean, you thought it was weird when he was the head coach of the Washington Redskins, and he was wearing Washington Redskins gear. That was odd. But to see him wearing Tulsa gear, that was even more bizarre.
Good for him supporting old junior.
Yeah, supporting his boy. It's good for him. So the Athletic came out with a transfer portal confidential, in which basically they had a panel of 13.
Mm-hmm.
And the panel of 13 involved linebacker coach at a Power 4, tight ends coach at a Power 4, director of player personnel from the Power 4. They had a group of 5 head coach. They had a Power 4 receivers coach, Power 4 cornersback coach, Power 4 head coach, Power 4 general manager, another Power 4 general manager, a group of 5 general manager, Power 4 recruiting coordinator, a Power 4 general manager, and a former Power 4 scouting director. So that's the 13 people that made up this panel.
I wonder what they could be talking about under the promise of anonymity. I have no idea.
For example, which transfer who didn't sign with your school did you like the most in the portal? Names are all over the place. Kamori House, North Carolina from Washington. Cam Vaughn, a receiver from Jacksonville State who ended up going with Rich Rod to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
That was somebody that a lot of people, if you watched Jacksonville State football last year, he was very impressive. Miller Moss.
Love that guy.
USC quarterback who transferred to Louisville. Eric Singleton was listed, who ended up at Auburn.
There's a lot of people that wanted him, yeah.
Mm-hmm. John Mateer.
Yep, another big one.
Big one. Zachariah Poser from Miami, from Jacksonville. It was another Jacksonville State. You get the theme here. A lot of really good Jacksonville State players. Okay, another topic. Whose portal class did you like the best? Just kind of jumping around a little bit on the answers. Ohio State.
Figures.
Texas Tech.
Yep.
Yeah.
LSU. A lot of Texas Techs on here, which
shocker.
We've detailed how much money Texas Tech paid for their transfer portal class. More Ohio State. There's an Oregon, Texas A&M. Interesting. Not a lot of Ole Miss or Auburn on there.
I was going to say, I think Lane Kiffin might take that one personally.
Did any school surprise you, good or bad, this past portal cycle? One coach said, you look at what Oregon's doing, the offensive linemen they've brought in, money talks. Another one, I thought SMU would be a little bit more active, but they didn't lose a lot.
Okay.
Duke did a great job bringing in quarterback Darian Mensah. Florida State did an excellent job bringing in Castellanos from Boston College.
Yep, like both of those moves.
Mm-hmm.
Which portal quarterback did you like the best? One coach, Caden Salter.
Okay.
Coach 2, Mateer, and the kid from Tulane.
Yeah, the two high money ones.
Mm-hmm.
They also said Malik Murphy from Duke going to Oregon State. Here's another one.
Carson Beck?
Mateer.
Oh, where's Carson Beck?
Poor Carson.
Coach 4, I love Chandler Morris.
Okay.
Another Mateer. Here's a Jackson Arnold from Auburn, from Oklahoma. Intriguing. I thought they had skill sets, but what are they going to be? Talking about Mateer and Jackson Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
Another Mateer saying he's more Baker Mayfield. Mateer is more of a fit, and he will make Oklahoma competitive in the SEC.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely agree.
A lot of Mateer.
Any Carson Beck?
One.
Oh, got one.
Yes, Carson Beck. But the injury is concerning. I know they're saying he's going to be 100% by the time the season rolls around, but that part is a little bit nerve-wracking.
Well, Hannah's nursing him back to health. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
All right, so this panel, which was made up of 13 on the Athletics.
Get into the dirt. Come on. Let's talk about tampering. That's got to be in there.
Well, let's talk about prices,
Okay.
shall we?
Okay.
Based off what you know, what is the going rate for a starting caliber player at the position you coach?
Okay.
Coach 1, probably $250,000 or higher at linebacker. For a receiver, $300,000. A normal average Power 4 starting quarterback is about $900,000. Your better ones, top 5 or 6 in the conference, will be between 1.3 and 1.4 million a season. You can get average for pretty good price We didn't go above $750,000 for our guy, but I do believe in him and what he can do.
God, I want to know who it is so bad.
I know, me too.
Coach 5 says there were receivers late in the stretch who were going to go for $800,000 to $1 million at some places. At the low end, maybe $200,000 to $300,000. For a starter, $250,000 to $300K. For some of those elite guys, probably $800,000 to $1 million or more. It is nuts.
Yeah, that would be like your Singleton to Auburn.
Yeah.
Coach 6 says, I would say the floor at cornerback on defense, $200,000.
The floor?
The floor.
Okay.
Coach 7 says $400,000 for a top tier running back.
Okay. So maybe that's what Justice Haynes got, something like that.
Coach 8 says a tackle is at about $1 million.
Yeah. I was about to say offensive line. I'm curious about defensive line too.
Boundary receivers are about $1 million plus. Coach 10 says at the premium positions, you're going to get a legit six figures at the G5 level, especially at quarterback. G5 tackles and edge rushers are probably clearing six figures as well. Once you get kind of past that, I don't think it's high as people think, probably in the tens of thousands for G5 running backs and receivers.
But still, I mean, just to think that you could have a quarterback at, I mean, a school like a UAB making hundreds of thousands of dollars, just so difficult.
Tight ends anywhere between $300,000 and $750,000. Now, this coach, again, names weren't given.
Yeah.
All right, this was Coach 13. Let me look at the key and let me see what he coached or what his title is. All right, he's a former Power 4 scouting director.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sitting here looking at what he said about, mentioned Auburn here. Let's see. Tight ends anywhere from $300,000 to $750,000. Quarterback minimum $1 million. If you're in Auburn, a Miami, or an LSU looking for the right one. Group of 5 starters at quarterback around $800,000.
That's really not that big of a gap between G5 and Power 4.
What's the boldest request you receive from a transfer recruit or representatives in this cycle?
This is what I want to hear.
One coach, $300,000 and a guarantee of 90% of the snaps.
Wow. Okay.
Man, that's so bold to.
Or $400,000 from a guy who made 30 tackles.
Oh.
Here's another coach. There was a Power 4 backup offensive lineman who wanted us to guarantee him $300,000, and he played like 19 snaps all season. What? I'm like, hell no. I'd rather retain a good player on my roster who I already know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's another coach. An agent, I wasn't even sure I was going to take this guy, but he said, quoting, now you need to think outside the box like crypto and gold bars.
No way.
Hope it wasn't the Hawk Tua coin.
This is what this coach said. I was thinking, what the F? What the hell is crypto?
It's a valid response.
Coach 8 said one of the requirements was a babysitter.
Okay, see, that's not.
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy ridiculous.
Says Coach 13, an offensive tackle told us if we gave him $715,000 and a car that he would sign with us. I think housing was also a priority.
Ridiculous.
It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of car? That could be make or break there,
I'll
too.
say, yeah.
Okay, and finally, it says, how much total money do you think your school needs to build a competitive roster in your league? $10 million. $21 million, $13 million, $14 million. This G5 coach said between $4 and $5 million.
Okay.
Which
what I was curious about.
That's what I've been told. If you listen to the Bill Clark podcast every Thursday here on Jocks 94.5, we talked about that, and Bill Clark has given that number as well. That a very competitive G5 program, you're probably looking at about $5 million a year. Another coach said you need at least 15 million just to be in the ball game. Another one says 15 million. One coach says, I believe ultimately it's going to cost between 40 and 50 million dollars.
Oh.
He goes, I think that's where it's got to go.
Oh, he's talking about the future, not right now.
No, not right now.
If you're spending $40 million, you better win a national championship.
Another coach said if you're talking championship level, Elite 8, Final Four level, you need 20 million roster at least. 13 to 15 million, 17 million. So you see the range.
So, but in the Power Five, essentially, it's $15 to $20 million seems to be the consensus.
You will be somewhat competitive in that price range, and if you're a group of 5, you better have about 4 to 5 million on your roster each and every year. More three-man front on Jocks 94.5. Pitch Perfect. It was a good movie. You like Pitch Perfect, didn't you?
I did. The first one's the best one, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Filmed on the campus of Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it.
I like it. It's a good movie.
The next one's kind of got silly.
Eh.
I only saw the first one.
That's really the only one you need to see. But Josh Allen, his fiance, is in the second.
She did have a significant role in that one.
She did. She was one of the main characters.
She did. You know, water can find its way into your crawl space, bringing dangerous mold, mildew, and wood rot into your home. But APS can help protect your home's foundation and provide valuable storage space as well. The APS crawl space encapsulation system, it can stop that water, keep the pests out while lowering your energy costs. The engineers at APS will design a custom solution for your home. Crawl space problems don't get better over time. They get better when you call APS 205-951-9717. You can start protecting your home today with APS, established in 1977 to solve the most challenging issues around your home. That number again, 205-951-9717, or visit their website at alabamaprofessional.com. Courtesy GMC, they bring us the text line, 205-834-9450. We've got some good stuff brewing over there, Conrad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate y'all chiming in throughout the show. We'll try to get to all of your text if we can. So we have somebody that said, so they played a parlay last night, but all of the bets were on Alabama. So they had the over 88.5 team total for Alabama. They had Alabama straight up. They had the over of 169 for the game, and they had under 81.5 for first half total points. So they hit on all four of those. So very nice payday there.
That is a really good ticket
on that parlay. That's very nice. We have Kelly who's chimed in from earlier in the show when we were talking about Molly's fever dreams. And I think this is actually a very fun idea. If you have some free time, Molly,
I'm doing it right now.
Someone suggested try putting your dreams into an AI generator and seeing what pops up. I can only imagine.
I'm doing this right now.
Some of the results.
See, I don't remember most of my dreams though. Like when I wake up, I feel like I forget them. Or like a significant amount.
I'm putting the dream that Landrum talks to us about all the time about him and Jimbo Fisher.
Oh yeah, Jimbo in the helicopter.
That has some deep rooted meaning. I don't know what it is, but I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm typing that in as we speak to AI. I was riding in a helicopter with Jimbo Fisher. That was it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what comes up.
So is it going to generate like a story for you?
Dreams are often a reflection of waking lives, emotions, and subconscious thoughts. Here are a few possible interpretations of that dream.
Oh, okay.
Success and achievement. Helicopters are often associated with power, speed, and reaching new heights. Jimbo Fisher is a successful college football coach. Well, this AI is definitely wrong. Known for his leadership and ability to lead his team to victory, the dream could symbolize your own aspirations for success and achievement in your personal or professional life. Yeah, Landrum.
Okay, so Landrum's trying to better himself.
All right.
He just really looks up to Jimbo.
It also means feeling out of control.
Oh.
That
would make sense.
Applicable.
Yeah.
Helicopters can also represent a feeling of being out of control or at the mercy of the external forces. The dream could reflect anxieties or concerns you have about a situation in your life that feels unpredictable or beyond your control. Here's another one.
That's awesome.
Unexpected opportunities. The unexpected nature of a helicopter ride could symbolize unexpected opportunities or changes coming your way.
Unexpected nature.
All right, here we go. Personal connection to Jimbo Fisher. If you're a fan of Jimbo Fisher or follow his career, the dream could simply be a reflection of your admiration for him.
It's that one.
There it is.
It's definitely that one.
That's what it is. Ultimately, the true meaning of your dream is personal and unique to you. Consider your own feelings and experiences during your dream, as well as your current life circumstances. And then there's a disclaimer, by the way.
What is that?
It says, this is just one possible interpretation of your dream.
No, that's it.
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
Dream interpretation is subjective, and there is no single definitive answer.
AI's word is bond. No, we're going with the...
So there you go. We just basically broke down Landrum's dream, multiple dreams. Should I put in there that Jimbo Fisher had his shirt off?
That could make it more interesting. That could make it more interesting.
That's a very important...
the facet that I left out?
Yeah.
I'll have to add that to my next one.
So thank you, Kelly, for
sending
us down that little rabbit hole.
It's also scary. I don't think I'll be typing in some of the dreams that that I hear some of my workforce compadres tell me about.
Yeah, you're trying to act like, you don't have weird dreams yourself. Let's see. We have, okay, somebody asked, can you guys explain what a live bet wager is?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, once a game is tipped off or a football game is kicked off, whatever the case may be, Las Vegas, they will provide in live time, like it will change literally every couple seconds. So if you're watching a basketball game, I mean, that line could fluctuate one way or another, just like a football game or a baseball game. You know, if a team loads the bases and all of a sudden, the line jumps one way or another. So that's what happens. Vegas provides, like watching a stock ticker. It's basically what it is. And if you see a number you like, then you play it.
We have another text rolling in. It says, talking about Tennessee basketball. Does Tennessee play defense or football when they're on the hardwood? Their physical style doesn't translate in March because it's meant to be free flowing. No one wants to watch a wrestling match in basketball. Roll Tide. Appreciate the text. Let's see. Mike texted in. Funny how we brought up Matt Rule starting the trend of no spring games, and we all kind of laughed and made fun of it, and now here it is impacting the SEC. Yeah, I think we knew that was coming. I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised by how quickly some of these announcements have been made. But
well, the funny part is the fact that you're getting multiple different reasons why. I mean, Matt Rule just came out and said, I don't want people looking at my players.
Which is the truth for everybody.
Well, then you had Texas come out and say, well, we've played 30 football games in 2 seasons. The kids are tired.
Boo-hoo. Welcome to being good again. Let's see. Someone texting in about Jim Phillips and some of the comments that he made at the CFP meetings. They say Clemson and FSU weren't forced to sign the new contract with the ACC. It's not Jim Phillips' fault. He's just standing up for the other members of his conference. Don't want to go on. I didn't know if you wanted to go on a tangent about
I said what I did.
Mr. Phillips. Let's see. Somebody else. Okay. Yep. Some people saying they've been on a hot streak with JR. Glad that that's been working out for you. Let's see. Somebody chiming in. They say, if Janai Broom's ankle is still a problem, I wish he wouldn't play a single minute in the SEC tournament. That tournament means nothing. Get him some rest for March. That is something that we have discussed a little bit on the show. And we've had other listeners chime in with, do you rest your starters in the SEC tournament because you'd rather have a couple of days rest before March Madness? That's certainly something that Bruce Pearl and his staff will have to figure out for themselves. But appreciate you all chiming in. We'll try to get to more of your text here before the end of the show.
We will get into some Pat Ponders next, brought to you by Courtesy GMC. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. 137 Jocks 94.5 on a gorgeous Wednesday. Appreciate you making us part of your day. 74 degrees, going to get up to about 76. That's perfect weather.
Beautiful day.
Get out and enjoy yourself this afternoon as you listen to Jocks 94.5 and get ready for the Auburn Tigers taking on the Ole Miss Rebels. Tip-off is at 6 o'clock. Pregame show right here on Jocks 94.5 at 5:30. Auburn currently a 13-point favorite over the Ole Miss Rebels. Let's do some Pat Ponders brought to you each and every day by courtesy GMC. Brought to you by courtesy GMC. Visit their online inventory at courtesybirmingham.com. Question number 1. So when Steve Spurrier was at Florida, everybody wanted him to lose on Saturdays. Same goes for Nick Saban when he was in Tuscaloosa. But my question is, what SEC basketball coach, present or past, did you always want to see lose when his team played?
You said current or former SEC basketball coach?
Yes. That you just rooted to see him lose every single time.
I know Landrum is a big fan of this guy. I don't think it's any secret that I don't particularly love this school, at least for right now in terms of current coaches. I don't like Buzz Williams. And I think a lot of it goes back to the whole 10-page breakdown of why Texas A&M deserved to be in the NCAA tournament. And just, I can respect the program that he's built there and the success that Texas A&M has had, but and part of it is it's A&M, but I've never had a thing for Buzz Williams. I've just never been a huge fan.
The first coach that came to my mind, especially like in my childhood and like since I've been alive, was Coach Cal.
Okay.
When he was at Kentucky.
That's a good one.
Coach Cal, when he started at Kentucky,
Yes.
It was cool. And then,
Eventually
the last handful of years, that's a good one.
Well, for me, when I first got in the business, it was Nolan Richardson at Arkansas.
Yeah.
He was someone that, not for me personally, but I'm talking about the majority of the people in the conference did not, particularly care for him.
I changed my answer. Musselman, sorry. I completely blanked on that one.
Musselman?
I could
That's a
not
good one.
stand Muscle. No, he was insufferable.
I know that there are pockets in the Southeastern Conference that Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl are not very popular coaches.
Right. Yeah.
The other people in the league, they just don't like them on the side court.
No, and I understand. Look, Nate Oates gets really chippy. Bruce Pearl sweats a lot. It is what it is. But see, I've always looked at, and me being an Alabama fan, I've never hated Bruce Pearl because I think Bruce Pearl, first off, I think he's a stand-up guy, but it's hard not to respect what he's done not only at Tennessee, but now at Auburn. And so it's easy from that's the biggest rival. So obviously, you don't want them to win, but, I've never looked at it that way. I think Nate Oates is probably more unlikable than Bruce Pearl, just to the general public.
There were certain reasons back in the day, whether folks didn't like Gene Bartow at UAB or folks didn't like Wimp in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Sutton was not a very popular person at Kentucky for a while.
Well, let's be honest, just about any successful coach, there's going to be people that don't like you because you're successful, not because of who you are.
We had an infamous interview with Dale Brown on the Feinbaum show where there was an incident that took place in Tuscaloosa with a fan that literally came down and almost got on the court to try to get after Dale Brown.
Like to try to fight him or something?
He was trying to get down onto the court, and Dale Brown came on a radio show and was talking and went typical Dale Brown. But a lot of people didn't like Dale back in the day either. So, all right, question number 2. Speaking of basketball coaches, Illinois basketball coach Brad Underwood had some words of wisdom for Duke's Cooper Flagg. I'm quoting directly from Brad Underwood. I hope he stays in school. He's just an 18-year-old kid. Go have fun. Chase a girl. Just enjoy the opportunity. End of quote. What advice would you give Flagg on possibly coming back for another year?
You're going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, make millions of dollars, and you're going to be able to have fun and do whatever you want in the NBA. So go do that.
Stay humble. That's about it.
Does that mean that you would endorse him moving on or staying at Duke another year?
No, just whatever you decide, just make sure you stay humble, pretty much.
So
Because
you
that
would-
can often get to your head.
You wouldn't tell him to go chase a girl?
No.
I would tell him the opposite of that.
Yeah, me
I'd be
too.
like, yeah, you need. Let's
Maybe
make
chill
sure.
out a little
I was
bit.
about to say, if anything, yeah, I hope it's a girl from high school because you're gonna have a lot of people that want a piece of you once you sign that
Excuse
NBA
me?
contract.
What did you say?
You know what I mean.
Whoa.
People are
Wow.
gonna try to take advantage of him because he's
What?
rich.
Oh. So you mean like Carson Beck and the Cavender twins?
Does she make more money than him?
I'd like to see their W-2s.
I think they can. Yeah, I would. I would too. I would too. But I mean, when you're going to be the number one overall pick in any sport,
you got to go, right?
You have to go.
But he said that he was thinking about
I
when he
know.
would come back.
And that's very nice sentiment for him to share with the Duke fan base. But if I'm John Shire and he's saying, "Oh, I'm going to come back," I'd be like, "Why? We'd love to have you, but why?"
I just said that quote. I hope he stays in school. He's just an 18-year-old kid. Go have fun. Chase a girl. Just enjoy the opportunity.
Well, this is also a Big Ten coach saying this to a player in the ACC, not him saying this
Yes,
if Cooper
please,
Flag was
please
at.
stay as long as you want
Yeah,
to.
yeah, this isn't Cooper Flag at Iowa or Michigan or something.
Yeah, please do that. All right, question number 3. USA Today recently wrote about LSU's football first game against Clemson, quoting, LSU's Brian Kelly can't afford to drop his 4th straight season opener. The last LSU coach to lose the opener in his first 4 seasons was Curly Hallman, and he was fired after his 4th season. Is that first game versus Clemson a must-win, in your opinion, for Brian Kelly to keep his job?
I would say no. I think in reality, I would say no, but I think for the fan base, it would be yes, because you have lost 3 straight years. I think you can accept the Florida State one a couple years ago because they went undefeated. That was a great team. But you lose the first year because you can't make an extra point at the end of the game to an average at that time Florida State team that was ascending. USC last year turned out to be kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
And you lost that game. And now you're going into another year where you would be behind the 8 ball in terms of the college football playoff. Because as we saw this year, being 9-3 might not be good enough. So if you lose that opening game, you now are looking at potentially having to go 10-1 the rest of the way to find yourself in the playoff. So I'm going to say no, because I think even if he goes 9-3 again, they're not going to fire him. But
Right.
you need to win that football game.
No, I agree. I mean, no, but it would look good, especially because Clemson, they're coming off of a season making the expanded college football playoff. Obviously, they went on to win the ACC. If you could beat them, that'd be great, but I don't think it's going to cost him his job, though.
Okay. We will see. That is today's Pat Ponders, brought to you by Courtesy GMC. Online inventory located at courtesybirmingham.com. Go by and see them in person off of I-459 exit 32 in Trussville. When we come back, Conrad has seen something that has literally made him sick to his stomach. We're going to share that next on 3 Man Front. You know, a lot of times when we follow stuff on social media in the round world of sports, you come across things that are really the worst thing that you've seen. And Conrad says he's got a doozy today. So we're going to hand it over to him. Let's play the music. This is the worst thing that Conrad has seen.
All right. We're going to try to do this responsibly.
Oh, that's a great start.
It is a great start. It is a great start. I will just start off by saying, before I get into the story, there are conflicting reports of the exact details of this circumstance that is going on in Oxford, Mississippi. If you are on...
Why are you bringing up Ole Miss?
Because it heavily involves the Rebels.
Pat, what'd you do?
No athletes involved, as far as we know.
Okay.
So don't think you have to worry about it in that regard. But in terms of Greek life down there at Ole Miss, if you are on social media especially if you're on X, last night, even though there was SEC hoops going on, there was one story that was taking over.
So you're spending more time looking at sorority websites from social media than you were watching SEC basketball?
Correct. I didn't even watch the Alabama game last night, actually, Pat, because I was so enthralled with this story. But no, in all seriousness, if you were on social media last night, you probably came across this. But there was a report or a story that was going around social media around the Ole Miss campus, and allegedly there is a sorority girl. I'm not going to share her name. You know the name if you've seen it.
Will you give us the sorority?
I think it was DG.
Delta Gamma.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was DG.
I have no idea.
But anyways, this girl had a lot of information being shared about her on social media last night because there was a report that came out that there was a sorority girl at Ole Miss who was in a relationship with some guy in a fraternity down there.
What was the fraternity?
I do not know.
Okay. No idea.
And allegedly, sorority girl cheats on her boyfriend.
Okay, that happens a lot.
With her boyfriend's dad.
That may not happen as much as the other.
Yes. So there are, and this is coming from, burner Twitter was absolutely on fire last night. Information coming from supposed screenshots of other students on campus, screenshots of fraternity and sorority group chats discussing the situation, direct messages claiming to be friends of the family and knowing what the situation is. So when I said we're going to handle this responsibly, there are conflicting reports about this story, and I don't want to just come on here and absolutely make fun of somebody if the situation is not what it appeared to be.
Okay, we're not going to mention any names.
No.
We're not going to mention names, but you might be watching the Auburn game tonight, and you might hear a chant or two about maybe a specific person. But here's my question. You may not know this or what was some of the things that you saw on social media, because me and Molly were doing more constructive things with our time last night as opposed to what you were doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm very disappointed that Bucky did not stop you from doing this last night. Anyway, when did the person in question, the boyfriend, how did he find out about this alleged incident?
That's an excellent question.
Did somebody tip him off? Did he walk in the middle of the situation?
No, it was not that. So I don't have a direct answer I can tell you it was not a situation where son walks in on girlfriend and dad, or anything like that. But from what I understand and all the different reports that are out there, it seems that this is something that happened last year. During, I think it was during one of the breaks that they have, in the schedule. You go back home for a week, whatever. And it was during a break, and the girlfriend and the boyfriend, I don't know if they're from the same hometown, the same area, but they were together at home. And as the story goes, the girlfriend was babysitting the younger sibling of her boyfriend, at which point the dad returned home, and she thought, okay, well, I'm going to go back home, whatever. Allegedly, they went to dinner, and
we're
going to go from there.
The girlfriend and the dad.
Correct.
Because she was babysitting the younger sibling. Where was her boyfriend?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
And so then the dad and his son's girlfriend went to dinner.
Yeah, so all of the reports that I've seen are aligned in that this is what happened. It was a situation where she was at the family's house. She was babysitting. After she was done babysitting, the father and her then went to dinner. Some reports said that she thought he was giving her a ride home. And on the way, he said, hey, do you want to stop for dinner? They then went to dinner, had drinks. One thing led to another. And that's where kind of the stories start to split in terms of how things progressed from there. But yes, long story short, the gist of the situation is it appears that there is a sorority girl at Ole Miss who had an affair with her boyfriend's father, which has now led to, I have seen dozens, if not hundreds, of Venmos going to the boyfriend in sympathy of having to deal with this situation.
Wait, people sending the guy money?
The boyfriend money out of, hey man, this is such a brutal situation. Yeah. Yes. Hope you get better. Because I mean, can you imagine getting on social media and you see your girlfriend is trending and you go, I wonder why? And then it turns out, oh, this is the reason why. And my understanding is that this was known within the family, including, unfortunately, the wife of the dad.
Oh, no.
And so the boyfriend's mother. And so I don't know exactly how the information came to light, but it was something that had been, this was not a secret that was revealed yesterday to the family. They already knew about it. It just became public information. And as you can imagine, social media ran wild with it. The Ole Miss baseball game last night, they were chanting the girlfriend's name in the crowd at the baseball game. And so, yeah, it's certainly a murky situation there. And when we get more details, I'll be happy to give an update. But again, with there being conflicting reports, I don't want to go too deep one way or the other until we actually know what happens. But safe to say, girlfriend cheating on boyfriend with boyfriend's dad is not something I think I've ever seen before. And that is the worst thing that I've seen.
So needless to say, they're not together any longer.
Well, that was part of it, was they allegedly were still together after this happened.
So after he found out they were still together.
Correct. Now, there were different reports. Some people have said they're broken up now. Some people have said they broke up and now have gotten back together again after the situation. So I don't know what the current relationship status is. But yes, it does seem that after this information was revealed to the boyfriend that he did continue that relationship, at least for a short period of time. So if you hear at the Auburn-Ole Miss game tonight a female's name being chanted by the student section, there you go. And if you want to find out more for yourself, just go search Ole Miss Dad on Twitter. And you will be entertained for quite some time.
Okay.
What a way to end.
Yes. Way to go, Conrad.
Thank you. I try.
All right. You've got Auburn-Ole Miss tonight. You can hear the game right here on Jocks 94.5. The Paul Feinbaum Show is coming up next. For Molly, Conrad, Landrum on assignment in Colorado, I'm Pat. Have a great afternoon.